When Caleb Morris pulled a dying woman from her grave in the Colorado wilderness, he thought he was saving a stranger. But Veronica Steele's first words shattered his world. "Your wife didn't die in an accident. She was murdered because of me." Now, with his 8-year-old daughter's life on the line and a billionaire's blood on a killer's hands, Caleb must choose between the quiet life he's built and the dangerous truth his wife died protecting. Stay until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The Colorado mountains held their secrets close, wrapped in pine and shadow, buried under years of silence. Caleb Morris had learned to live with silence. It had been his companion for 3 years now, ever since the day the highway patrol knocked on his door with news that turned his world to ash. His wife Lisa, brilliant, fearless Lisa, gone in an instant, they said. A tragic accident on a mountain road. Faulty brakes. Just one of those things. Except it wasn't. But Caleb didn't know that yet. Not on this crisp October morning when the aspens burned gold against an impossibly blue sky, and his daughter Lily chattered beside him about the different types of pine cones scattered along the trail. "Daddy, look! This one's got sap still on it. That means it's fresh, right?" Lily held up her prize, her dark braids bouncing as she hopped over a fallen log. At 8 years old, she had her mother's eyes, sharp, curious, missing nothing. It was both Caleb's greatest comfort and his deepest wound. "That's right, kiddo." Caleb adjusted the pack on his shoulders, scanning the trail ahead. They were miles from the nearest road, deep in the San Juan wilderness where he'd brought Lisa on their first camping trip 15 years ago. Back when the future stretched before them like this endless trail, full of promise and adventure. Now he came here to remember, to feel close to her again, to pretend, just for a few hours, that she might be waiting for them back at the trailhead, camera in hand, ready to show them the shots she'd gotten of that eagle's nest. "Can we go to the waterfall?" Lily asked, already veering off the main path toward the sound of rushing water. "Stay where I can see you," Caleb called, but she was already disappearing into the undergrowth, fearless as always, just like her mother. He followed, pushing through the dense brush, listening to Lily's excited squeals as she discovered the small cascade they'd found together last summer. The water tumbled over moss-covered rocks, creating a natural amphitheater of sound that drowned out the world beyond. That's probably why he almost missed it. Lily had wandered to the far side of the pool, crouching to examine something in the mud, but Caleb's attention snagged on something else, a disturbance in the earth about 20 yards upstream, where the ground sloped up into a small clearing. The soil looked wrong, too dark, too fresh, mounded in a way that nature didn't arrange things. His military training, rusty but never forgotten, kicked in. Someone had been digging here, recently. "Lily, come here, please." He kept his voice calm, but something in his tone made her obey immediately. She splashed across the shallow water and tucked herself against his side. "What's wrong, Daddy?" "Probably nothing. Just stay close." He moved toward the disturbed earth, his pulse beginning to quicken. Could be an animal's den. Could be someone burying trash. Could be... The fingers. They emerged from the soil like pale roots, clawing upward, caked with dirt and blood. Human fingers, very much alive. "Oh, God!" The words ripped from Caleb's throat. "Lily, turn around. Don't look. Don't look!" But he was already moving, dropping to his knees, digging with his bare hands, throwing soil aside in frantic handfuls. The fingers twitched, grasped at air, at hope, at one more breath. Someone was buried here. Someone was still alive. "Daddy, what?" "Call 911. Now! Use my phone!" He tossed it backward, hearing it land in the leaves behind him. Not caring, just digging, digging, digging. His fingers hit something solid. A shoulder, maybe an arm. He scraped the dirt away from what looked like fabric, expensive fabric, the kind that cost more than his truck payment. A face emerged. Female. Mid-30s. Beautiful even in extremis, with high cheekbones and sharp features caked in mud and terror. Her eyes flew open, startlingly green, wild with panic, and she gasped, sucking in air and dirt and life. "I've got you," Caleb said, pulling her upper body free, cradling her as he worked to unearth her legs. "I've got you. You're okay. You're going to be okay." She coughed violently, spitting soil, her whole body convulsing. Behind him, Lily was on the phone, her voice small and frightened but brave. So brave, giving their location to the dispatcher with the kind of precision Caleb had taught her for emergencies. The woman's hand shot up and grabbed Caleb's jacket with surprising strength. Her eyes locked on his, and for a moment they just stared at each other, two strangers connected by the thin thread between life and death. "Who did this to you?" Caleb asked gently, still working to free her legs from the earth's grip. One was twisted at an odd angle. Broken, probably. "Who buried you?" Her mouth worked, trying to form words through the dirt and fear. Finally, in a voice like broken glass, she whispered, "Hale. Richard Hale." The name meant nothing to Caleb. He nodded anyway, focusing on getting her completely free. Her designer suit, because that's what it was, he could see now, a charcoal gray business suit that probably cost thousands, was torn and filthy, hanging off her frame in tatters. "Okay, we're going to get you out of here. Help is coming." He could hear it now, faint but growing, the distant thrum of helicopter blades. They must have scrambled the mountain rescue team from Durango, but the woman wasn't done. She grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her, her eyes boring into his with desperate intensity. "Lisa," she gasped. "Lisa Morris!" The world tilted. Caleb's hands froze in the dirt. "What did you say?" "Your wife." The woman coughed again, blood flecking her lips. Internal injuries probably, but she forced the words out anyway. "Lisa Morris. She worked for me 3 years ago." Everything went very still. Even Lily's voice on the phone seemed to fade away, leaving just this moment, this woman, this name that haunted every corner of Caleb's life. "You knew Lisa?" His voice came out strangled. "I'm Veronica Steele." Another cough, more blood. "Steele Development. Your wife, she was my compliance officer, and she's dead because of me." The helicopter was closer now, its rotors cutting the morning air into pieces. Caleb could see Lily pointing skyward, waving, trying to guide them in, but he couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "What are you talking about? Lisa died in a car accident." Veronica Steele's laugh was bitter and broken. "Is that what they told you?" "No, no accident. She found something in my company's books. Something that would have destroyed. Her eyes rolled back, consciousness slipping. "Stay with me." Caleb shook her gently. "What did she find? What are you talking about?" "Murder," Veronica whispered, her eyes focusing again with effort. "Money laundering, trafficking, millions. She tried to tell me. I didn't listen fast enough. And Hale..." Her fingers dug into his jacket. "Hale killed her for it, cut her brakes, made it look like an accident. And now he tried to kill me because I finally figured it out." The world wasn't tilting anymore. It was shattering, fracturing into a million pieces of before and after, truth and lies, accident and murder. "You're saying someone murdered my wife?" "Yes." 3 years ago?" "Yes." "And now they tried to murder you?" "Yes." Veronica's eyes were fading, her grip loosening. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to her, should have protected her. But I was too focused on the company, on the profits, on everything except the rot underneath. And she paid the price. Your daughter..." She looked past Caleb to where Lily stood, small and scared and trying so hard to be brave. "Your little girl paid the price." The helicopter was landing now, whipping dirt and pine needles into a frenzy. Paramedics jumped out, running toward them with a stretcher and equipment. Caleb should have felt relief. Instead, he felt numb, hollow, like someone had reached into his chest and torn out the scar tissue he'd carefully built over his wife's memory. "Sir, we need you to step back." A paramedic, young, competent, all business, knelt beside Veronica, checking her vitals, calling out numbers to his partner. Caleb stood on wooden legs. Lily crashed into him, wrapping her arms around his waist, burying her face in his jacket. He held her automatically, watching as the medical team worked on Veronica Steele, this stranger who claimed to hold the truth about Lisa's death. "BP's dropping. We need to move now." The paramedics lifted Veronica onto the stretcher. She fought them weakly, her eyes searching for Caleb. "Find Daniel," she called out as they carried her toward the helicopter. "My godson, Daniel Hale. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what his father is. Then she was gone, loaded into the chopper, airlifted away to wherever miracles happened and people survived being buried alive. The helicopter rose, banked, and disappeared over the ridge, leaving Caleb and Lily alone in the sudden silence. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Lily looked up at him, her mother's eyes full of questions. "Daddy? What did that lady mean? About Mom?" Caleb's throat closed. He'd spent 3 years telling Lily stories about her mother. Happy stories, brave stories, stories that helped a little girl understand why Mommy wasn't coming home. He'd never told her about the screaming matches with the insurance company. The police reports that didn't quite add up. The way Lisa's brakes had been completely sheared, as if someone had taken a saw to them, not worn down gradually over time. He'd accepted the official story because what else could he do? He was a single dad trying to raise a daughter and run his late wife's landscaping business and not fall apart. He didn't have time for conspiracy theories. Except now a woman had crawled out of her own grave to tell him it wasn't a conspiracy. It was murder. "I don't know, baby," he said finally, taking Lily's hand. "But I'm going to find out." They walked back down the mountain in silence. The peaceful morning destroyed, replaced by something dark and hungry. By the time they reached his truck, Caleb had made several decisions. First, they were going straight to the hospital in Durango where they'd taken Veronica Steele. Second, he was calling his old Army buddy Marcus, who'd gone into private security and owed him a favor. Third, he was getting answers. The drive to Durango took 90 minutes through winding mountain roads. Caleb's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel the entire time. Lily sat in the back seat, uncharacteristically quiet, drawing in her notebook. She always drew when she was processing something difficult. When Lisa died, she'd filled a dozen notebooks with pictures of flowers and angels and a stick-figure family that got smaller and smaller on each page. His phone rang as they hit the outskirts of town. Marcus. "Got your message," his friend said without preamble. Marcus didn't waste words. Never had. "You okay?" "Define okay," Caleb said, watching Lily in the rearview mirror. She had her earbuds in, lost in whatever kid podcast she'd been binging lately. "Found a woman buried alive this morning. She says Lisa was murdered." Silence. Then, "Say that again?" Caleb did, laying out the whole strange encounter in clipped sentences. When he finished, Marcus let out a low whistle. "Veronica Steele. I know that name. Real estate mogul. Billions in development projects across the Southwest. There was something in the news last month. Her company's under investigation for bid rigging, I think. Or maybe it was environmental violations. She's connected, man. Major connected." She said a name. Richard Hale. Another pause. Longer this time. "Caleb, do not mess with Richard Hale." "Who is he?" "Old money. Mining mostly, but he's got fingers in everything. Real estate, politics, casinos. The kind of guy who makes problems disappear. If Steele is saying he tried to kill her," Marcus's voice dropped. "If she's right, and you go poking around, you're going to end up in a hole just like she almost did." Caleb's jaw tightened. "So what am I supposed to do? Pretend I didn't hear any of this? Go back to mowing lawns and tucking Lily in at night and never knowing what really happened to my wife?" "Yes," Marcus said bluntly. "That's exactly what you do. You've got a kid, brother. You've got a life. Don't throw it away on revenge." "It's not revenge, it's truth. Truth is expensive. Sometimes the cost is your life." Caleb pulled into the hospital parking lot, found a spot near the emergency entrance. Through the windshield, he could see the trauma bay doors, the organized chaos of nurses and doctors moving behind the glass. "I have to know," he said quietly. "If someone killed Lisa, if they got away with it for 3 years, I have to know." Marcus sighed. "Then at least be smart about it. Don't go charging in like it's Kandahar. These aren't insurgents, Caleb. They're American power players with lawyers and cops in their pockets. They'll bury you legally before they ever have to get their hands dirty." "Noted." "I'm serious. Let me make some calls. I've got contacts who can dig into Hale quietly, professional-like. You just sit tight and—" "I've got to go," Caleb interrupted. "I'll call you later." He hung up before Marcus could protest, then turned to Lily. She pulled out one earbud. "We're going to go inside for a little while," he said. I need to check on the lady we helped this morning. Lily nodded, tucking her notebook into her backpack. As they walked across the parking lot, she slipped her small hand into his. Daddy, are we in danger? The question hit him like a punch. She was too smart, too observant. She'd heard more than he thought. No, baby, we're safe. You're lying. She said it matter-of-factly, without accusation. You use your Captain America voice when you're worried. You did it after Mom died, too. Caleb stopped walking, knelt down so they were eye to eye. Listen to me. I will never let anything happen to you. Do you understand? Never. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but if we're not in danger, why do you look so scared? Because I am, he thought. Because I'm terrified that everything I thought I knew was a lie. Because I'm scared that the woman I loved died for someone else's sins. And I'm scared that finding out the truth might cost me everything I have left. But he couldn't say any of that. So instead he hugged her tight and said, sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things even when they're scared. That's what being brave means. Like Mom, Lily said softly. She was brave. Yes, like Mom. They walked hand in hand into the hospital. The emergency department was controlled chaos. Nurses calling codes, machines beeping, the smell of antiseptic and fear thick in the air. Caleb approached the registration desk, where a tired-looking woman with gray roots showing through her dye job barely looked up. Help you? I'm looking for a patient who was brought in by helicopter about 2 hours ago, Veronica Steele. Now the woman looked up, her eyes sharpened. Are you family? I'm the one who found her. I pulled her out of... He glanced at Lily, edited himself. I found her. I need to know if she's okay. The woman's expression softened slightly. Let me check. She typed on her computer, frowned, typed some more. She's in surgery. That's all I can tell you. If you want to wait, the surgical waiting area is on the 3rd floor. Thank you. They took the elevator up, emerging into a quieter corridor where anxious families clustered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones. Caleb found 2 chairs near a window overlooking the parking lot and settled in. Lily pulled out her notebook again and started drawing. Hours passed. The afternoon sun crawled across the floor. Caleb bought terrible coffee from a vending machine and worse snacks. He checked his phone compulsively, though he didn't know who he was expecting to call. Marcus, maybe. Or the ghost of his wife, finally ready to tell him what really happened. It was nearly 6 o'clock when a doctor emerged, pulling off a surgical cap to reveal sweat-dampened hair. She scanned the waiting room, spotted Caleb, how she knew he was the one waiting, he wasn't sure, and headed over. Mr. Morris? He stood. Yes, is she... Ms. Steele is alive, but it's touch and go. She sustained significant trauma, broken ribs, punctured lung, internal bleeding. We've stabilized her, but the next 24 hours are critical. The doctor paused, studying him. She was asking for you before we put her under. She said to tell you, find the ledger, my office, behind the Rothko. Caleb blinked. Behind the what? Rothko. It's a painter. That's all she said before she lost consciousness. The doctor checked her pager. I have to go. If you want to see her, check with the nurses station in the ICU, but keep it brief. She needs rest. She disappeared back through the double doors, leaving Caleb with more questions than answers. Find the ledger, her office, behind the Rothko. What the hell was a Rothko? He pulled out his phone, typed the name into Google. Mark Rothko. Abstract expressionist. Famous for huge canvases of color fields. Museums paid millions for his work. And apparently, Veronica Steele had one in her office. Of course she did. Daddy? Lily tugged his sleeve. Can we go home? I'm tired. He looked down at his daughter, brave, patient Lily, who'd spent her whole day dealing with adult trauma without complaint. She deserved better than this. Better than a father dragging her into whatever nightmare this was becoming. Yeah, kiddo, let's go home. They drove back to Pagosa Springs in near darkness, the mountain roads threading through pools of shadow. Their house sat on the edge of town, a small ranch-style place with a big yard that Lisa had loved. Caleb had kept it exactly as she'd left it. Her books still on the shelves, her coffee mug still hanging on the tree by the sink, Her favorite blanket still draped over the back of the couch. A shrine, Marcus had called it once. Maybe it was. But it was also the last place Caleb could feel close to her. He made Lily dinner, mac and cheese, her favorite, and let her watch TV while he cleaned up the kitchen. His mind churned, turning over Veronica's words again and again. Find the ledger. Behind the Rothko. What was in this ledger that was worth killing for? After Lily went to bed, Caleb sat in the dark living room with his laptop, researching. Richard Hale's face stared back at him from dozens of photos, gala events, ribbon cuttings, charity fundraisers. Silver-haired and distinguished, with the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. He was everywhere, on boards, at political fundraisers, shaking hands with governors and senators. Untouchable. Caleb dug deeper, following link after link. Hale's business empire was vast and complex. Mining operations in 6 states, real estate holdings worth hundreds of millions, investments in everything from casinos to tech startups. His son, Daniel Hale, was listed as VP of Operations at Hale Mining Corporation. The younger Hale appeared in fewer photos, usually lurking at his father's shoulder, dark-haired and serious. Veronica had mentioned him. My godson, Daniel Hale. He doesn't know what his father is. A godson working for his father's company, unaware of what lurked beneath the surface. It was almost Shakespearean. Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. You still alive? So far, Caleb typed back. Learn anything? Just that I'm way out of my depth. Good. That's the smart take. Now step back and let the professionals handle it. Caleb stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone down without responding. Step back. Walk away. Go back to the safe, quiet life he'd built for himself and Lily. Except he couldn't, not anymore. Because if Veronica Steele was telling the truth, if Lisa had been murdered, if someone had gotten away with it for 3 years, then every moment of grief, every tear, every story he'd told Lily about how Mommy was watching over them from heaven, all of it was built on a lie. He needed to know. No, he needed the truth. And if Veronica Steele had evidence locked away in her office behind a multi-million-dollar painting, then that's where he'd start. Caleb checked on Lily, sleeping soundly, her notebook open on the nightstand with a drawing of the 3 of them, stick figures holding hands, then went to his bedroom closet. In the back, behind the winter coats and Lisa's wedding dress that he couldn't bring himself to donate, sat a lockbox. He hadn't opened it in 3 years. Inside, his discharge papers from the Army, his ranger tab, a folded flag from his grandmother's funeral, and beneath it all, wrapped in an oilcloth, his old service pistol, a Beretta M9 he'd been allowed to keep. Caleb lifted it out, checked the magazine. Still loaded. He'd kept it that way, telling himself it was for home defense, knowing deep down he'd never expected to use it again. Now he wasn't so sure. He wrapped the gun back up and tucked the lockbox under his bed, then returned to his laptop. Steele Development had offices in downtown Denver. A quick search revealed that Veronica Steele's personal office occupied the top floor of a building in the Lodoo district, a modern glass and steel structure with state-of-the-art security. Great. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus. Okay, I pulled some strings. Hale is bad news. Suspected involvement in at least 3 unsolved murders over the past decade, all people who threatened his business interests. But nothing sticks. Guy's got connections in the DA's office, state police, even the FBI. Caleb's blood ran cold. Are you saying he's untouchable? I'm saying if you go after him, you better not miss, because you won't get a second shot. The phone rang before Caleb could respond. Unknown number. He answered anyway. Mr. Morris? A male voice, young, nervous. Who is this? My name is Daniel Hale. I'm Veronica Steele's godson. She told me about you. About what happened in the mountains. Caleb sat up straighter. Where are you calling from? My car. I'm outside your house. Every instinct Caleb had learned in the Army screamed at him. He moved to the window, peering through the curtains. Sure enough, a black Mercedes sat at the curb, headlights off. He could just make out a figure in the driver's seat. Why are you here? Because Veronica asked me to protect you. Daniel Hale's voice cracked. And because I think my father tried to kill her." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. "Come to the door," Caleb said finally. Slowly. "Keep your hands where I can see them." He hung up, moved to the front door, and waited. Through the peephole, he watched Daniel Hale emerge from the Mercedes, tall, lean, maybe 30 years old, wearing jeans and a button-down shirt. He walked up the path with his hands raised, palms out. Caleb opened the door. "Inside, quickly." Daniel slipped into the house, and Caleb shut the door behind him, locking it. They stood in the hallway, sizing each other up. Daniel had his father's sharp features, but none of his coldness. Instead, he looked haunted, like a man who'd seen the monster beneath the mask. "Talk," Caleb said. Daniel took a shaky breath. "Veronica is my godmother. She and my mom were college roommates. After my mom died, Veronica kept tabs on me, even though my dad, he didn't like it, said she was too liberal, too soft, but she was there for me when nobody else was. And now? Now she's in the ICU, and the police are calling it a random attack. But it's not random. I know it's not." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. "My father has been acting strange for weeks. Secret meetings, phone calls at odd hours. And yesterday I overheard him talking to someone, I don't know who, about taking care of the steel problem. That doesn't prove anything." "No, but this does." Daniel pulled out his phone, swiped through it, held it up. It showed a text message. "Location confirmed. Job done. Awaiting payment." The timestamp was from early this morning, around the time Caleb had found Veronica. "Who sent this?" Caleb asked. "It came to my father's phone. I went through it while he was in the shower this morning. I've been going through all his stuff, actually, ever since Veronica called me 3 days ago and said she'd found something that connected my father to criminal activity." Caleb's pulse quickened. "What did she find?" "She wouldn't say. Just that it was dangerous. That I needed to be ready to choose between my father and the truth." Daniel's voice broke. "I didn't believe her. I thought maybe she'd made a mistake, that my father, whatever his faults, he couldn't. But now you think differently." "Now I know differently." Daniel met Caleb's eyes. "Veronica regained consciousness for a few minutes this evening. Just long enough to tell me what happened, how your wife found evidence of money laundering running through steel development, how the money was coming from my father's operations, drugs, human trafficking, illegal mining operations in Mexico, how Lisa tried to expose it and died for it, and how Veronica only recently realized what Lisa had been trying to tell her." The room spun. Caleb sat down heavily on the stairs. "My wife was murdered over a money laundering scheme?" "Your wife was murdered because she was about to blow the whistle on a criminal empire worth billions. My father's empire." Daniel's face twisted with pain. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." They sat in silence for a moment, two men bound by the sins of someone they'd both trusted. "Veronica said something," Caleb said finally. "Before surgery. She said to find the ledger, behind the Rothko in her office." Daniel nodded slowly. "I know what she's talking about. She's got a Rothko in her private office, orange and yellow, one of his most famous pieces. And if she says there's a ledger behind it, then that's where Lisa's evidence is. Can you get us in?" "Maybe. Veronica gave me an access card once for emergencies, but the building has security, cameras, guards." Daniel hesitated. If we go after this evidence, my father will know. He'll come after us." "He's already coming after us," Caleb said. "We just don't know it yet." Daniel swallowed hard, then nodded. "Okay. When?" "Tonight." "Tonight, but your father tried to murder Veronica this morning. He's either going to send someone to finish the job, or he's going to try to destroy the evidence before anyone can find it. We can't wait." Daniel looked sick but didn't argue. "What about your daughter?" "Lily. God, Lily." Caleb had almost forgotten she was sleeping upstairs, lost in the chaos of revelations. "I need to call in a favor." He pulled out his phone, dialed Marcus. "Hey, I need you to come to Pagosa Springs now, and I need you to watch Lily." "What? Caleb, what are you doing?" "Something stupid and necessary. Can you be here in 3 hours?" A long pause. You're really doing this. You're going after Hale. I'm going after the truth. That's the same thing. Marcus sighed. Fine, I'll be there. But Caleb, you better come back alive or I'll kill you myself. Caleb hung up and turned to Daniel. We've got 3 hours. Tell me everything you know about your father's operation. They spent the next hours at Caleb's kitchen table, Daniel spilling secrets he'd spent a lifetime learning. Richard Hale's empire was vast and terrible. Mines in Mexico operated with slave labor, brothels disguised as massage parlors, construction projects built with laundered drug money. And at the center of it all, a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts designed to hide the blood money. Steel development was supposed to be clean, Daniel explained. That's why my father partnered with Veronica. She had the reputation, the connections, the legitimacy. He needed her company to wash his money, make it look like legitimate real estate deals instead of cartel profits. And Lisa found out. Lisa was doing a routine compliance audit. She found irregularities, cash payments that didn't match up, contractors that didn't exist, invoices for materials that were never delivered. She started pulling at the thread and Daniel didn't finish. He didn't have to. At midnight, Marcus arrived. A bear of a man with a scarred face and kind eyes. He took one look at Caleb and Daniel sitting at the kitchen table and shook his head. You two look like you're planning a funeral. Maybe we are, Caleb said. He quickly filled Marcus in on the plan. Marcus listened without interruption, his expression growing darker by the minute. You're insane, he said when Caleb finished. Both of you. Breaking into steel development? To steal evidence from a potential crime scene? Do you understand how many laws you'd be breaking? Do you have a better idea? Caleb challenged. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then shook his head. No. Unfortunately, I don't. If Hale has cops in his pocket, going to the authorities is just painting a target on your back. So you'll help? I'll watch your kid. That's all I'm signing up for. Marcus paused. But if you're not back by dawn, I'm coming to find you. Caleb nodded, then went upstairs to check on Lily one more time. She was still sleeping, her face peaceful in the glow of her nightlight. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, memorizing the sight of her. If this went wrong, if he didn't make it back, Marcus would take care of her. He knew that. But it wasn't enough. He wanted to be here, to watch her grow up, to walk her down the aisle someday and tell her stories about her mom. He wanted the life he'd been promised, but first, he needed the truth. I love you, baby girl, he whispered. Be brave, like your mom. Then he turned and walked away, praying it wouldn't be the last time. The drive to Denver took 4 hours through the darkness. Daniel drove while Caleb sat in the passenger seat, checking and rechecking the plan. They'd go in through the parking garage. Daniel's access card would get them past the first checkpoint. From there, they'd take the service elevator to the executive floor, avoiding the main security desk. If they were lucky, they'd be in and out in 15 minutes. If they weren't lucky, Caleb pushed the thought away. Dawn was breaking over the Denver skyline when they pulled into the garage beneath Steel Tower. Daniel's hand shook as he swiped his access card. The gate lifted smoothly. So far, so good, he muttered. They parked in a distant corner, away from the security cameras Daniel knew about. The building was quiet at this hour, just a few early morning workers trickling in. They walked purposefully toward the service elevator, Daniel's card granting them access. The ride up seemed to take forever. Caleb's heart hammered against his ribs. He'd been in combat zones that felt less tense than this gleaming corporate tower. The elevator dinged, the doors opened onto the executive floor, all polished wood and expensive art. Down the corridor, light spilled from beneath an office door. Someone was here. Caleb and Daniel froze, exchanging glances. Then, slowly, they moved toward the light, every footstep carefully placed. As they got closer, voices became audible, two men speaking in low, urgent tones. Told you to handle it quietly. Burying her alive in the mountains is not handling it quietly. That voice. Caleb recognized it from his research, cold, cultured, ruthless. Richard Hale. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. Through the crack in the door, he could see Richard Hale standing with his back to them, phone pressed to his ear, his silver hair gleaming under the office lights. The man radiated power even in silhouette, broad shoulders and an expensive suit, the casual confidence of someone who'd never been told no. She's still alive, which means she can talk, Hale continued, his voice sharp with irritation. I don't pay you to leave loose ends, Victor. I pay you to solve problems permanently. Beside Caleb, Daniel had gone pale, one hand pressed against the wall to steady himself. This was his father, the man who'd raised him, taught him to ride a bike, sent him to Yale, and here he was, casually discussing murder like it was a business transaction. I want this handled today, Hale said. Steele's in the ICU at Mercy Hospital. Security is minimal. A pillow over her face, make it look like complications from her injuries. Can you manage that, or do I need to find someone competent? Caleb moved before he could think, shouldering through the door with Daniel stumbling behind him. Hale spun around, his eyes widening for just a fraction of a second before his expression smoothed into practiced neutrality. He lowered the phone slowly. I'll call you back, he said into it, then ended the call with deliberate calm. His gaze swept over them, lingering on Daniel with something that might have been disappointment, then settling on Caleb with cold assessment. Daniel, I wasn't expecting you, and you've brought company. Dad. Daniel's voice cracked. Tell me I didn't just hear what I think I heard. You heard a private conversation that's none of your business. Hale slipped his phone into his pocket, his movements unhurried. Who's your friend? Caleb Morris, Caleb said, stepping forward. Lisa Morris's husband. Something flickered in Hale's eyes. Recognition, calculation, maybe a hint of regret, but it passed quickly. Ah, the landscaper. I wondered when you'd surface. You knew my wife. I knew of her. She was an inconvenience that was handled. Hale said it like he was discussing pest control. I'm sorry for your loss, Mr. Morris, but you're trespassing in a private office building. I suggest you leave before I call security. Call them, Caleb challenged. I'd love to explain to the police why we're here. I'm sure they'd be very interested in what we just overheard. Hale smiled, a thin, dangerous expression. Would they? Or would they be more interested in why you broke into a secured building after hours, accompanied by my emotionally unstable son, who's been exhibiting signs of psychosis? He turned to Daniel. How are those therapy sessions going, by the way? Still struggling with those paranoid delusions about your father? Daniel flinched. That's not what this is. Of course it is. You've always been weak, Daniel, like your mother. She couldn't handle the truth either. Hale's voice softened, became almost sympathetic. It's not your fault. Mental illness runs in families. Everyone will understand why you snapped, why you broke in here with this stranger making wild accusations. Stop it, Daniel's hands clenched into fists. I know what you are, what you've done. What I've done is build an empire. What I've done is provide for you, educate you, give you every advantage in life. Hale moved behind the massive desk that dominated the office, his fingers trailing across its polished surface. And this is how you repay me? By believing the lies of a woman who's trying to cover her own crimes? Veronica isn't lying, Caleb said. She told us about the money laundering, about Lisa finding evidence, about how you had my wife murdered. Hale laughed, a genuine sound, almost amused. Is that what Veronica said? How interesting. Did she also tell you that she approved every single transaction Lisa Morris questioned? That she signed off on every shell company, every inflated invoice, every penny that moved through Steele development? The words hit like a physical blow. Caleb staggered back a step. You're lying. Am I? Why do you think Veronica waited 3 years to come forward? Why do you think she only started asking questions after the FBI began investigating her company? Hale leaned forward, his eyes glittering. She's not a whistleblower, Mr. Morris. She's a co-conspirator trying to save her own skin by pinning everything on me. No. But even as Caleb said it, doubt crept in. Why had Veronica waited? Why now, after all this time? Check the signature cards at any bank, Hale continued smoothly. Look at the corporate filings. Veronica Steele authorized everything. She knew exactly what was happening because she was part of it. Your wife didn't die because she discovered our operation. She died because she was going to expose both of us. And Veronica, coward that she is, chose to protect herself by eliminating the threat. You're saying Veronica killed Lisa? Daniel's voice shook. I'm saying Veronica gave the order. I simply carried it out. Hale straightened, adjusting his cufflinks. Your wife was a good woman, Mr. Morris. Honest. Principled. Exactly the kind of person who becomes a liability in business. Veronica couldn't afford to have her testimony destroy everything we'd built, so she asked me to handle it. I did. Cleanly, professionally, made it look like an accident. Everyone was satisfied with the explanation except you, apparently. Caleb's world tilted again, reality fracturing into competing narratives. Was Hale telling the truth? Or was this just another manipulation, another layer of lies designed to confuse and deflect? I don't believe you, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Believe what you want. It doesn't change the facts. Hale opened a desk drawer, pulled out a flash drive, and tossed it onto the desk. Take it. Everything you need to know is on there. Bank records, emails, recorded phone calls, all of it implicating Veronica Steele in criminal conspiracy. Take it to the FBI, to the media, to whoever you want. Destroy her. She deserves it. It was too easy, too convenient. Every instinct Caleb had screamed that this was a trap, that Hale was 3 moves ahead and they were playing checkers while he played chess. Why would you give us evidence against your partner? Daniel asked the question Caleb was thinking. Because she's not my partner anymore. She's become a liability. Hale's voice hardened. Veronica got sloppy, got greedy, started keeping records she should have destroyed. When the FBI came sniffing around, she panicked. Started making plans to flip on me, to trade my head for her freedom. So I gave her a choice. Disappear quietly or disappear permanently. She chose to fight. That was her mistake. And now you're trying to frame her for everything, Caleb said slowly, understanding dawning. You're going to kill her and blame her for all of it. Make her the villain so you walk away clean. Hale smiled. I'm simply correcting the historical record. When Veronica Steele dies, and she will very soon, the story will be simple. Corrupt CEO runs illegal operations, murders whistleblower to cover her crimes, guilt drives her to suicide. Very tragic. Very tidy. Except she's not going to die, Caleb said, because we're going to protect her. With what? Hope and determination? Hale laughed again. You're a landscaper with a dead wife and a child to raise. Daniel's a trust fund kid who's never worked a real day in his life. What exactly are you planning to do against me? Before Caleb could answer, Daniel lunged forward, grabbing the flash drive from the desk. We're going to expose you, both of you, if that's what it takes. But we're going to make sure everyone knows the truth about what happened to Lisa Morris. Hale's expression shifted, the practiced charm evaporating to reveal something cold and reptilian beneath. Daniel, son, don't do this. Don't throw away your future over some misguided sense of justice. Walk away now, and I'll forget this happened. We'll get you help, proper help, and I don't need help. I need a father who isn't a monster. Daniel's voice broke. Mom would be ashamed of you, of what you've become. For the first time, real emotion crossed Hale's face, rage barely contained, turning his features into something ugly. Your mother was weak. She couldn't understand what it takes to build something real, something lasting. She would have let sentiment destroy everything I created. She would have stopped you, Daniel whispered. That's why you were relieved when she died, wasn't it? Because she was the only one who could see what you really were. The silence that followed was suffocating. Hale and Daniel stared at each other across the desk, years of unspoken truths crystallizing into this single moment. Then Hale reached for the phone. Security? I have 2 intruders in Veronica Steele's office. Send a team immediately. They may be armed and dangerous. Caleb grabbed Daniel's arm. We need to go, now. They ran, sprinting down the corridor toward the service elevator. Behind them, Hale's voice echoed, You can't protect her, Daniel. I own this city. I own the police, the hospitals, the judges. There's nowhere you can hide. The elevator doors opened and they threw themselves inside. Caleb jammed the button for the parking garage as footsteps thundered toward them. The doors slid closed just as 2 security guards rounded the corner, their hands reaching for weapons. Oh God, Daniel gasped, clutching the flash drive like a lifeline. He's going to kill us. He's going to kill all of us. Not if we move fast. Caleb's mind raced, calculating options. They needed to get to the hospital, needed to warn Veronica, needed to get this evidence somewhere safe. But Hale would anticipate all of that. He'd have people at the hospital already, waiting. Going there would be walking into a trap. The elevator reached the garage. They exploded out, running for Daniel's Mercedes. Caleb scanned their surroundings, looking for threats, seeing danger in every shadow. They were in the car, engine roaring to life, when the garage's exit gate began to lower. "Go!" Caleb shouted. "Floor it!" Daniel gunned the engine. The Mercedes shot forward, tires squealing on concrete. The gate was halfway down, then 3/4. They weren't going to make it. "Duck!" Caleb grabbed Daniel's head, pushing him down as the car scraped under the descending gate. Metal shrieked against metal, the roof peeling back like a sardine can, glass shattering. Then they were through, bursting onto the early morning street in a shower of sparks. Daniel yanked the wheel, narrowly avoiding a parked car. Behind them, security guards poured out of the building, but they were already gone, weaving through Denver's awakening streets. "Hospital," Caleb said. "We have to warn Veronica." "He'll have people there, you heard him." "Then we go in smart. You have any contacts at Mercy Hospital? Anyone who owes you a favor?" Daniel thought frantically. "Maybe. Veronica's personal assistant, Claire. She's been with her for 10 years. If anyone would help, it's her." "Call her." Daniel fumbled for his phone with shaking hands, nearly dropped it, managed to dial. The call went to voicemail. He tried again, same result. "She's not answering," he said, voice rising with panic. "Keep trying and drive. Don't stop for anything." They raced through the city as the sun climbed higher, painting the buildings in shades of gold and pink. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like a countdown, each minute bringing them closer to whatever horror Hale had planned. Daniel's phone finally rang. "Claire, thank God. Listen, you need to get to the hospital right now. Veronica's in danger. There's going to be an attempt on her life today, maybe in the next hour." He listened, his face paling further. "What? When? Are you sure?" He hung up, turned to Caleb with stricken eyes. "She's already there. She went to check on Veronica early this morning and found 2 men in her room. They claimed to be orderlies, but Claire didn't recognize them, and their badges looked fake. She raised hell, got real security involved, and they ran." "Did they hurt Veronica?" "No, but Claire says she's terrified. She's been asking for me. For both of us." Caleb checked his watch. 6:15 in the morning. "How long to the hospital?" 20 minutes. Maybe 15 if I ignore every traffic law." "Ignore them." Daniel drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running red lights, pushing the damaged Mercedes to its limits. Caleb kept his eyes on the mirrors, watching for tails. But if Hale had people following them, they were too skilled to spot. They screeched into the hospital parking lot at 6:32, abandoning the car in a no-parking zone and sprinting for the entrance. Claire met them in the lobby, a severe woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. "She's in room 847, Claire said without preamble. "But there's a problem. 2 uniformed cops showed up 10 minutes ago claiming they need to question her about the attack. They're outside her room right now." "Are they real cops?" Caleb asked. "Their badges look real, but—" Claire hesitated. "One of them keeps checking his phone, and they're not acting like any police I've ever seen. Too nervous. Too focused on getting into her room." Hale's people. Had to be. Either real cops on his payroll or hired thugs with convincing fake credentials. "We need a distraction," Caleb said. "Something to pull them away from that room long enough for us to get Veronica out." "Get her out?" Daniel stared. "She just had surgery. She can barely breathe on her own. And she'll definitely die if she stays here." Caleb turned to Claire. "Is there a back entrance to the ICU? Service elevator? Loading dock? Something?" Claire's eyes sharpened with understanding. "There's a staff corridor that leads to a freight elevator. It goes down to the basement level where they receive medical supplies. But you'd need access cards, and you'd have to get her past the nurses' station without being seen. Can you do that? The access cards?" "I'm Veronica Steele's executive assistant. I can do a lot of things." Claire pulled a card from her purse, swiped it through a reader at a nearby terminal, and began typing rapidly. "I'm giving you both temporary visitor credentials with elevated access. It'll last 2 hours before the system flags it as suspicious." 2 small plastic cards emerged from the machine. Claire handed them over. The nurse's station is the problem, she continued. There are cameras everywhere, and the staff knows to alert security if anyone tries to move an ICU patient without authorization. What if there was an emergency? Daniel asked. Like a fire alarm? That would evacuate the entire floor, including Veronica. So we pull the alarm. Caleb shook his head. Too obvious. Hale's people would know something was up, and they'd be waiting wherever the patients get moved. They stood in silence for a moment, three people trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Then Caleb's phone rang. Marcus. You alive? Marcus asked without greeting. For now. How's Lily? Still sleeping, but Caleb, you need to hear this. I've been digging while you were gone, calling in favors from my security days. Richard Hale has a son who's been feeding information to the FBI. Caleb glanced at Daniel. We know. He's standing right here. Not Daniel, another son. From a previous marriage. Guy's name is James Hale. He's been working undercover for the Bureau for 2 years, building a case against his father from the inside. The world tilted again. Richard Hale has 2 sons? Had. James died 3 weeks ago. Car accident in Phoenix. Except according to my contact, the FBI thinks it wasn't an accident. They think Richard found out his son was informing and had him killed. Caleb's blood ran cold. He looked at Daniel, seeing new understanding dawn in the younger man's eyes. I had a half-brother, Daniel whispered. I had a half-brother, and I never knew. There's more, Marcus continued. The FBI has been watching Hale for months. They know about the money laundering, the trafficking, all of it. But they don't have enough evidence to move. Everything they have is circumstantial. If you've got something solid, we have a flash drive. Hale gave it to us. Silence. Then, he gave it to you? Why? He claims it proves Veronica Steele is behind everything, that she ordered Lisa's death. And you believe him? Did he? Caleb's head spun with competing narratives. Hale was clearly a monster, but was Veronica an innocent victim or a co-conspirator trying to save herself? I don't know what to believe, he admitted. But right now, keeping Veronica alive is the priority. We can sort out who's guilty later. Fair enough. You need backup? Can you get here? I'm 4 hours away and I've got your kid. But I can make calls. I know people in Denver who can help. Do it. And Marcus, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Just stay alive long enough for me to yell at you in person. Caleb hung up and turned to find Daniel and Claire staring at him. I had a brother, Daniel repeated numbly. And my father killed him. We don't know that for sure, Claire said gently. Yes, we do. We know exactly what Richard Hale is capable of. Daniel's face hardened. Which is why we're getting Veronica out of here, now, before he can hurt anyone else. I have an idea, Caleb said. But it's risky, and it requires split-second timing. They huddled close as he outlined the plan. Claire would create a medical emergency on the opposite end of the floor. Nothing serious, just convincing enough to pull the nurses and doctors away from the ICU station. While they were distracted, Daniel would use his visitor credentials to get past the fake cops, claiming he was Veronica's godson and had a legal right to see her. That would get them arguing, focused on him. Meanwhile, Caleb would slip in through the staff corridor, disconnect Veronica from the monitors quickly enough that it wouldn't trigger immediate alarms, and wheel her bed to the freight elevator. Daniel would meet them in the basement, and they'd use Claire's car, parked in the loading zone, to get Veronica somewhere safe. It was full of holes. A dozen things could go wrong, but it was the only chance they had. I'll need 5 minutes to set up my distraction, Claire said. There's a patient in room 862 with a history of cardiac issues. If I accidentally trigger his IV alarm to show a medication error, every nurse on the floor will respond. That's not dangerous to the patient? Caleb asked. The alarm will show a problem that doesn't actually exist. He'll be fine. Annoyed, but fine. Do it. Claire disappeared toward the elevators. Caleb and Daniel waited in tense silence, watching the clock. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Finally, Caleb's phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Ready? Go on my signal. They moved to the elevator bank. Daniel kept checking his reflection in the polished doors, adjusting his torn shirt, trying to look like someone who belonged here, and not like someone who'd just crashed through a parking garage gate. The phone buzzed again. Now! They stepped into the elevator. Caleb pressed the button for the 8th floor, while Daniel headed for the stairs. They'd arrived separately, less suspicious. The elevator climbed with agonizing slowness. Caleb could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears, could feel the weight of the service pistol tucked in his jacket pocket. He'd brought it from the car, knowing that if things went wrong, he might need it. The doors opened onto chaos. Nurses were running toward the far end of the hall, where alarm bells shrieked. Doctors shouted orders. And standing outside room 847, looking annoyed by the commotion, were 2 men in police uniforms. Caleb took a breath and headed for the staff corridor Claire had mentioned. It was tucked behind a janitor's closet, barely marked. He swiped the access card. The lock clicked green. Inside, the corridor was narrow and utilitarian. Bare concrete walls, exposed pipes, the smell of industrial cleaner. He moved quickly, following the signs toward the ICU's back entrance. Through a small window in a door, he could see into the unit. There was Veronica's room just 20 feet away. And there, in the hallway outside it, was Daniel, arguing with the fake cops. "I don't care what your orders are," Daniel was saying loudly. "I'm her godson. I have medical power of attorney. You can check with the hospital administration if you want, but I'm going in that room right now." "Sir, we need to question Ms. Steele about the attack," one of the cops said. His hand rested on his gun belt, fingers drumming nervously. "Then question her with me present." "I'm not letting her be alone with anyone until I know she's safe." They were focused entirely on Daniel, backs to the corridor. Perfect. Caleb pushed through the door, moving with the purposeful stride of someone who belonged there. None of the distracted nurses looked twice at him. He slipped into Veronica's room and closed the door softly. She was awake, eyes wide with fear and pain. Tubes ran from her arms, monitors beeped steadily, and her face was pale as paper. But when she saw Caleb, relief flooded her features. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We're getting you out of here. Can you stay quiet?" She nodded. Caleb worked quickly, disconnecting the monitors with hands that remembered combat first aid training. He'd learned how to do this in reverse, how to hook wounded soldiers up to life support. Doing it backward felt like defusing a bomb. The heart monitor went silent. Then the oxygen sensor. He had maybe 90 seconds before someone noticed, before alarms started going off. He released the brake on her bed and started wheeling it toward the staff corridor door. Veronica bit her lip against pain, tears streaming down her face, but she didn't make a sound. They were almost there when one of the fake cops glanced through the room's window. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Everything happened at once. The cop shoved Daniel aside and burst through the door. Caleb pushed Veronica's bed hard, sending it rolling through the corridor entrance, then spun to face the cop. The man's hand was already on his gun, already drawing it. Caleb moved on instinct, closing the distance before the weapon cleared its holster. He grabbed the cop's wrist, twisted, felt bones grind. The gun clattered to the floor. The cop threw a punch. Caleb blocked it, countered with an elbow to the man's jaw. The cop staggered back. The second cop was coming now, gun already drawn. Caleb dove for cover behind a supply cart as the corridor exploded with the sound of gunfire. Bullets punched through plastic bins, through metal shelving. Someone screamed. Nurses scattered. Daniel appeared in the doorway, grabbed the cart Caleb was hiding behind, and pulled it backward into the corridor. More bullets sparked off metal. Then the door slammed shut and Daniel was jamming a security bar across it. "Go!" he shouted. "I'll hold them! You'll die!" "Then I die doing something that matters. Go!" Caleb ran, pushing Veronica's bed ahead of him. Behind them, fists hammered on the door, wood splintering. Daniel was buying them seconds at most. The freight elevator was at the end of the corridor, its doors standing open like a mouth waiting to swallow them. Caleb shoved the bed inside, slammed the button for the basement level. As the doors began to close, he saw the corridor door explode inward, saw Daniel go down under a tackle, saw one of the fake cops raise his gun. Then the elevator doors cut off his view and they were descending, Veronica sobbing quietly, Caleb's hands shaking with adrenaline and horror. "Daniel!" Veronica gasped. "We can't leave him." "We have to. It's what he wanted." But even as he said it, Caleb was pulling out his phone, dialing 911. "Shots fired at Mercy Hospital, 8th floor ICU. Multiple casualties. Send everything." The elevator reached the basement. The doors opened onto a loading dock where Claire waited beside a nondescript Honda, engine running. "Where's Daniel?" she demanded. "Being a hero," Caleb said, and the words tasted like ash. They loaded Veronica into the back seat as gently as they could. Claire climbed behind the wheel. Caleb took the passenger seat, his gun now in his hand, safety off. They pulled out of the loading dock just as police sirens began to wail in the distance. Real police this time, responding to Caleb's call. Maybe they'd get there in time to save Daniel. Maybe they wouldn't. "Where are we going?" Claire asked, her voice remarkably steady. "Somewhere Richard Hale doesn't own," Caleb said. "Somewhere we can figure out what the hell to do next." In the back seat, Veronica coughed weakly. "My cabin, in Breckenridge, it's under a shell company name. Hale doesn't know about it." "You sure?" "I made certain of it. It's where I hid the real evidence." The ledger was a decoy. Caleb twisted in his seat to stare at her. "A decoy? What do you mean?" "The ledger behind the Rothko. It was insurance. Basic financial records that prove money laundering, but nothing that directly implicates Hale in murder." Veronica's eyes were fierce despite her pain. "The real evidence, the proof that he ordered your wife's death, that he's been running a criminal empire for 20 years, that's in my cabin. On a server I maintained separately from everything else, because I knew eventually I'd need to protect myself from him." "So you did know," Caleb said slowly. "All along. You knew what he was doing." "Not all of it. Not at first." Veronica closed her eyes. "I was willfully blind. I wanted the money, the success. I told myself the irregularities were just aggressive accounting, that Hale's connections were just good networking. But Lisa, your wife, she forced me to see the truth. And instead of listening to her, instead of standing with her, I chose to protect myself. I told Hale she was becoming a problem." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy as sin. "You gave the order," Caleb said flatly. "I told him to handle it. I didn't say how. I didn't ask. I wanted the problem to go away." Tears streamed down Veronica's face. "I'm a coward, Mr. Morris. I let your wife die because I was too scared to lose everything I'd built, and I've been living with that guilt every day since. When the FBI started investigating, I saw it as my chance to finally make it right, to expose Hale, to give Lisa's death meaning. But I was too slow. He figured out what I was planning and tried to kill me." Caleb wanted to hate her, should hate her. This woman had facilitated his wife's murder, had let Lisa die to save her own skin. But looking at her now, broken, terrified, finally trying to do the right thing, even if it was 3 years too late, he couldn't find it in himself to feel anything but tired. "If we do this," he said, "if we go to your cabin and get this evidence and expose Hale, there's no going back. You'll go to prison too. You know that, right?" "I know, and I deserve it." "You could still run. Take the evidence, cut a deal with the FBI, testify against Hale in exchange for immunity." Veronica shook her head. "I could, but that's what a coward would do, and I'm done being a coward." Claire glanced in the rearview mirror. "We've got company. Black SUV, 3 cars back, been following us since we left the hospital." Caleb turned to look. Sure enough, there it was, tinted windows, aggressive driving, keeping pace despite Claire's evasive maneuvers. "Hale's people?" Claire asked. "Who else?" Caleb checked his gun. 13 rounds. Against how many of them? "There's another one," Claire said. "Gray sedan, right lane. They're trying to box us in." The trap was closing. They were on I-70 now, heading toward the mountains, traffic thick with morning commuters. No way to outrun their pursuers without causing a massive accident. "Options?" Claire demanded. Caleb's mind raced. They couldn't go to the police. Hale owned too many of them. Couldn't go to a hospital. They just escaped from one. Couldn't even go to Veronica's cabin because Hale's people would follow them there. His phone rang. "Daniel." "You're alive," Caleb breathed. "Barely. Those fake cops are real cops, or were, off-duty deputies from Jefferson County that Hale hired for security work." Daniel's voice was strained. "I'm in custody right now, but the real cops are starting to ask questions. About why 2 sheriff's deputies were trying to assassinate a patient. About why they opened fire in a hospital. I told them everything, Caleb, about my father, about the money laundering, about Lisa. They're listening." "Did they believe you?" I don't know, but it bought you time. Where's Veronica? Safe. We're heading to Breckenridge to her cabin. She says there's evidence there. Don't go. The certainty in Daniel's voice made Caleb's blood run cold. Why not? Because I know my father. If Veronica has evidence hidden somewhere, he's already thought of that. He's probably had surveillance on that cabin for weeks, waiting to see if she'd lead him there. You're walking into an ambush. Then what do we do? Give me the flash drive. Let me take it to the FBI. It's not perfect evidence, but combined with my testimony, with what happened at the hospital, it might be enough to get them moving. To get warrants issued before Hale can destroy everything. Your father said that flash drive implicates Veronica in everything, that it makes her look like the mastermind. Maybe. But right now, getting both of them arrested is better than letting both of them walk free. Daniel paused. My father killed my brother Caleb. He killed your wife. He tried to kill Veronica, and he would have killed me too if the real police hadn't shown up. I don't care if I send him to prison by throwing my godmother under the bus. I care about stopping him before anyone else dies. It was cold, ruthless, and absolutely right. We'll meet you, Caleb decided, but not in Denver, somewhere public, lots of witnesses. Red Rock's amphitheater. There's a sunrise yoga class that starts at 7. 100 people, park rangers, security. Hale can't make a move there without exposing himself. Caleb checked the time. 6:55. They could make it, barely, if they lost their tail. Claire, we need to lose these guys, now. Claire's hands tightened on the wheel. Hold on. She floored it, the Honda surging forward into a gap between two semis. The black SUV tried to follow, but Claire cut across 3 lanes, took an exit at the last possible second, tires screaming. They shot down the off-ramp, ran a red light at the bottom, and merged onto a side road. Behind them, the SUV was caught in traffic, unable to follow. The gray sedan? Caleb asked. Lost him in the lane change, but they'll regroup. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they find us again. 10 minutes. Caleb punched Red Rocks into his phone's GPS. 17 minutes away. It was going to be close. They raced through the foothills west of Denver, the landscape shifting from urban sprawl to red sandstone formations. The morning sun painted everything in shades of crimson and gold, beautiful and terrible. In the back seat, Veronica had fallen silent, her breathing shallow. How is she? Caleb asked Claire. Not good. She needs a hospital. After. We deal with Hale first, then we get her help. Red Rocks emerged ahead, its iconic stone walls rising from the earth. Cars were already filling the parking lot, yogis in expensive athleisure, tourists with cameras, families out for a morning hike. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that 3 people were about to arrive carrying evidence of murder and conspiracy. Claire parked near the entrance. Caleb helped Veronica out of the car, supporting her weight as they made their slow, painful way toward the amphitheater steps. People stared at Veronica's hospital gown, at the blood seeping through bandages, at Caleb's grim expression, but no one intervened. On the stage below, a yoga instructor was leading 100 people through sun salutations. Their synchronized movements would have been peaceful any other day. Today, Caleb barely noticed. Daniel was waiting near the top row of seats, flanked by 2 men in cheap suits. FBI, probably, or possibly just the detectives who'd responded to the hospital shooting. His face was bruised, one eye swelling shut, but he was standing, alive. Mr. Morris, one of the suits said as they approached. I'm Agent Chen, FBI. Daniel Hale has made some serious allegations against his father. I need to hear your side of the story. First, this woman needs medical attention, Caleb said, lowering Veronica onto a bench. She's been shot, beaten, and buried alive. Whatever questions you have can wait until she's stable. Agent Chen signaled to someone below. Paramedics began making their way up the stairs. Now, Caleb continued, you want my story? Here it is. Richard Hale is a murderer. He's been running a criminal empire for decades, using steel development to launder money from drug trafficking, human trafficking, and illegal mining operations. 3 years ago, my wife discovered evidence of his crimes, and he had her killed. Yesterday, he tried to kill Veronica Steele to keep her from exposing him. This morning, he sent hired cops to finish the job. And right now, he's probably destroying evidence as fast as he can. That's quite an accusation, Agent Chen said carefully. Do you have any proof? Daniel held up the flash drive. This contains financial records proving the money laundering, and Veronica has… Server, Veronica gasped. Breckenridge cabin. Safe behind the painting. Master bedroom. Password is… She coughed, blood flecking her lips. Password is Lisa Morris 127. The paramedics reached them, immediately starting to work on Veronica. Agent Chen watched with narrowed eyes. You understand, he said slowly, that what you're describing sounds insane. Richard Hale is one of the most respected businessmen in Colorado. He's donated millions to charity, served on presidential advisory committees. The idea that he's secretly running a criminal empire is absolutely true, a new voice interrupted. They all turned. A woman was climbing the stairs, 50-something, gray hair pulled back, federal credentials hanging from her neck. Assistant Director Sarah Morrison, FBI, she said, slightly out of breath. And gentlemen, Ms. Steele, what you've stumbled into is part of an ongoing federal investigation. We've been building a case against Richard Hale for 18 months. We've got wiretaps, financial forensics, witness statements. What we don't have is proof of murder. Until now. She looked at each of them in turn, her expression grave. If what you're telling me is true, if Hale ordered the death of Lisa Morris, if he attempted to murder Veronica Steele, if we can prove it, then we have enough to move. But I need that evidence, all of it, and I need it now before Hale realizes how badly he's exposed and goes to ground. Then get a warrant, Daniel said. Search the cabin in Breckenridge. The server's there. Everything you need. Already working on it. Judge is signing papers as we speak. Morrison pulled out her phone, barked orders into it. ERT to Breckenridge, that address, full document seizure protocol, and get me a team to Richard Hale's residence and office. If he runs, I want to know about it. She hung up, turned back to them. You three just kicked over a hornet's nest. Hale's going to come after you with everything he has. We can offer protective custody. No, Caleb said. I have a daughter in Pagosa Springs. I need to get to her. Then we'll send agents with you. Nobody moves alone until Hale is in custody. It should have felt like victory, like the beginning of justice. Instead, Caleb felt only exhaustion and a gnawing fear that they'd underestimated Richard Hale one too many times. As the paramedics loaded Veronica onto a stretcher, she reached for Caleb's hand. I'm sorry, she whispered, for all of it, for not being brave enough to save your wife. For not being the person she believed I could be. Caleb squeezed her hand briefly. Make it right, he said. Testify. Put Hale away. Give Lisa's death meaning. I will. I promise. They wheeled her away, leaving Caleb standing in the amphitheater with Daniel and a handful of FBI agents. Below, the yoga class continued, oblivious. People breathing, stretching, finding peace in a chaotic world. Caleb envied them. His phone rang. Marcus. We have a problem, Marcus said without preamble. Lily's gone. The world stopped. Every sound, the yoga instructor's voice, the wind through the rocks, Agent Morrison barking orders into her phone, all of it faded to nothing. There was only Marcus's voice, tight with controlled panic, and the three words that turned Caleb's blood to ice. What do you mean, gone? The words came out strangled, barely human. I went to check on her 15 minutes ago, and her room was empty, windows open, screens been cut from the outside. There's a note on her pillow. Marcus's breathing was harsh. Caleb, it says, we have your daughter. You have something we want. Call this number. There's a phone number written below it. Caleb's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the stone bench, phone pressed to his ear, vision tunneling. Not Lily, not his little girl, anyone but her. I'm coming, he managed. Don't call that number, don't do anything. I'm coming right now. Caleb, the cops are already here. I called 911 the second I found her missing. They're treating it as an abduction. No cops. The words came out harsh, desperate. Marcus, you don't understand. Richard Hale owns half the police in this state. If they get involved, Lily dies. Do you hear me? She dies. Silence on the other end. Then quietly, what have you gotten yourself into, brother? I'll explain everything when I get there. Just keep everyone away from that number until I arrive." He hung up and looked up to find Agent Morrison staring at him, her expression grim. "Richard Hale has my daughter," Caleb said flatly. "He's going to use her as leverage to get the evidence and make all of this go away." Morrison's jaw tightened. "We can help. We have kidnapping response teams, negotiators." "You have a mole." Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. He was pale, shaking, but his eyes were clear. "My father doesn't do anything without insurance. If the FBI has been investigating him for 18 months and he's still walking free, it means he knows exactly what you know, which means someone in your organization is feeding him information." Morrison opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. The calculation in her eyes was cold and practical. Even if that's true, walking into a hostage situation without backup is suicide. "Then I commit suicide," Caleb said, standing, "but I'm getting my daughter back." "Mr. Morris, my wife is dead because she tried to do the right thing, because she trusted that the system would protect her, that justice would prevail. And where did that get her? In the ground with a story about faulty brakes." Caleb's voice rose, all the rage and grief of 3 years finally breaking free. "I'm not losing my daughter to the same system that failed my wife. I'm not trusting anyone except myself." "And me," Daniel said. "You're not doing this alone." "Daniel, you don't have to—" "He has my brother's blood on his hands. My mother's. Your wife's. How many more people have to die before someone stops him?" Daniel's face was set, resolved. "I'm coming with you." Agent Morrison looked between them, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she pulled out a business card and pressed it into Caleb's hand. "My direct line. It bypasses all official channels. If you need help, call me. I'll come alone." Caleb pocketed the card and started running, down the amphitheater steps, past the yoga class, through the parking lot to where Claire still waited with her Honda. Daniel was right behind him. "Drive," Caleb barked as they threw themselves into the car. "Pagosa Springs, fast as you can." Claire didn't ask questions. She just put the car in gear and floored it, sending them rocketing out of the parking lot and onto the highway. Caleb pulled out his phone, stared at it, his hand shaking so badly he could barely hold it. 8 years old. Lily was 8 years old. She'd already lost her mother, already spent 3 years learning to live with that hole in her heart. And now this. Now she was in the hands of a man who killed people like other men changed their socks. "Call the number," Daniel said quietly. "Let's find out what he wants." "We know what he wants, the evidence, the flash drive, the server, all of it, in exchange for Lily. So we give it to him." Caleb's head whipped around. "And then what? He kills her anyway? Kills all of us? You think your father is going to let any of us walk away knowing what we know?" "No," Daniel admitted. "But maybe we can stall him. Buy time for the FBI to move, to get warrants executed, to arrest him before he can hurt her. And if we can't? If he's already destroyed the evidence at the cabin? If he's cleaned up every trace of his crimes and it's just our word against his?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Claire drove in silence, pushing the Honda to its limits, weaving through traffic on I-70 as they climbed into the mountains. The beautiful Colorado landscape blurred past, pine forests, snow-capped peaks, pristine lakes that reflected the morning sky. It all felt like a mockery. Caleb's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Clock is ticking, Mr. Morris. Call or I start sending pieces." His stomach lurched. He dialed before he could think better of it. Richard Hale answered on the first ring. "Mr. Morris, I was beginning to think you didn't care about your daughter." "If you hurt her, you'll what? Kill me?" You couldn't even manage to steal evidence from an office building without triggering every alarm in Denver. Hale's voice was smooth, almost amused. "But let's not waste time on threats. You have something I need. I have something you want. Let's make a trade." "Where is she? Let me talk to her." "In a moment. First, the terms. You bring me the flash drive Daniel stole. You tell me the location of Veronica's hidden server, and you convince Veronica to recant her accusations. Do all three, and your daughter goes home. And if I don't? Then I send her to join her mother, though I'll be considerably less subtle about making it look like an accident." Hale paused, let the words sink in. I'm texting you an address. Be there in 2 hours. Come alone, unarmed, with everything I asked for. Deviate from these instructions in any way, and the child dies. Are we clear? Crystal. Good. Now, as promised. There was a rustling sound, then Lily's voice, small and terrified. Daddy? The word broke something in Caleb's chest. Baby, I'm here. I'm coming to get you. There's a man. He said you did something bad. Did you, Daddy? Did you do something bad? No, sweetheart. I'm trying to do something good, like Mom did. Do you understand? I want to go home. I know, baby. I know. Just hold on a little longer, okay? I'm coming. I promise I'm... The line went dead. Caleb sat frozen, phone pressed to his ear, listening to silence. Then, slowly he lowered it and pulled up the text Hale had sent. An address in the mountains outside Pagosa Springs. Middle of nowhere. Perfect place for an ambush. I'm going, he said. Alone. Like hell you are, Daniel shot back. My father will kill you the second you hand over the evidence. Probably, but at least Lily will be alive. Will she? You think Hale is going to leave a witness? An 8-year-old girl who can testify that he kidnapped her? Daniel shook his head. He's already planning to kill both of you. Going in there with the evidence just makes his job easier. Caleb wanted to argue, but the logic was inescapable. Richard Hale was tying up loose ends. Everyone who knew about his crimes, everyone who could testify against him, they were all targets. Veronica, Daniel, Caleb, and now Lily. The only way any of them survived was if Hale went to prison first. But how could they make that happen in 2 hours? His phone rang again. Agent Morrison. We got the warrant for the Breckenridge cabin, she said without preamble. Team's on site now, but Morris, we have a problem. The cabin's been cleaned. Professionally? No server? No safe? No evidence? Just empty rooms and the smell of bleach. Caleb's heart sank. He already got to it. Looks that way. Either Hale had advance warning or Steele was lying about what was there. She wasn't lying. She had no reason to lie. Then Hale moved fast, which means whatever leverage you thought you had just evaporated. Morrison paused. I'm sorry. About your daughter. But this makes everything more complicated. If we can't prove Hale's crimes, we can't arrest him. And if we can't arrest him, he gets away with everything, Caleb finished, including murder. Not if we're smart. Not if we make him confess. Morrison's voice sharpened. You're meeting him, aren't you? For the exchange? In 2 hours. Then wear a wire. Get him talking. Get him to admit what he did to your wife, to Veronica, to your daughter. Give us something we can use in court. You want me to interrogate the man who's holding my child hostage. I want you to be smart about this. Going in there without a plan gets both of you killed. Going in with evidence, even if it's just a recorded confession, gives us a chance to put him away. Caleb closed his eyes, thinking. A wire. It could work. If he could get Hale talking, if he could draw out admissions of guilt, it might be enough. But it also meant taking risks, prolonging the confrontation, giving Hale more opportunities to hurt Lily. How fast can you get a wire to Pagosa Springs? He asked. I can have an agent there in 90 minutes. Where should we meet? Caleb thought of his house, thought of all the memories there. Lisa's books, her coffee mug, the life they'd built. Hale had already taken so much from that place, he wouldn't let him poison it further. The trailhead where I found Veronica. You know it? I'll find it. 90 minutes, Morris, and then you're on your own. I can't risk tipping off a potential mole by mobilizing a full team. But I'll be listening, and if things go south, I'll come in. With what authority? You just said we don't have enough evidence to arrest him. Then I'll improvise. Just keep him talking. She hung up. Caleb stared at his phone, at the address Hale had sent, at the countdown timer in his head that said he had 118 minutes to save his daughter. Change of plans, he said to Claire. Take us to the San Juan trailhead first. We're meeting someone. The drive took 40 minutes that felt like 40 years. Claire pushed the Honda mercilessly, taking mountain curves at speeds that should have been impossible. In the back seat, Daniel was silent, staring out the window at the landscape that had shaped his childhood. Caleb wondered what he was thinking. whether he was grieving the father he'd thought he had, or raging at the monster that father had become. The trailhead was empty when they arrived, the parking lot abandoned. This wasn't tourist season yet, and it was too early for the serious hikers. Caleb got out of the car and stood where he'd stood just 24 hours ago, when the biggest problem in his life had been loneliness and the quiet ache of old grief. Everything had changed. Everything. A black sedan pulled into the lot exactly on schedule. A woman got out, mid-40s, athletic build, the kind of unremarkable appearance that made her perfect for undercover work. She carried a small backpack. "Mr. Morris, I'm Agent Torres." She didn't offer her hand. "Assistant Director Morrison sent me with equipment and a tactical overview of your situation." "How much does she trust you?" Caleb asked bluntly. Torres's expression didn't flicker. "Enough to send me alone instead of with a team. Enough to tell me that this operation is off book, and if it goes wrong, it was never authorized." She pulled a small device from her backpack. "This is a voice-activated recorder. It'll capture everything said within a 20-foot radius. Battery life is 8 hours. Memory is sufficient for your purposes. The data uploads to an encrypted cloud server in real time, so even if Hale finds it and destroys it, we'll have the recording." She showed Caleb how to attach it, a thin strip that adhered to his chest, nearly invisible under his shirt. Then she pulled out a second device, slightly larger. "This is a tracker, not standard issue. I pulled it from our tactical inventory. It's designed for undercover operations in hostile territory." Torres attached it to the inside of Caleb's belt. "If you trigger the panic button," she showed him a small depression in the metal, "it sends your coordinates to Morrison's phone and mine. We'll come running." "How far away will you be?" "Close enough. I'll position myself within a mile of the exchange point. If I hear gunfire, if the signal cuts out, if you don't check in within an hour of the scheduled time, I come in heavy. And if Hale has people watching, if they see you—" "They won't." Torres said it with absolute confidence. "I've been doing this for 15 years, Mr. Morris. I know how to stay invisible." She pulled out the last item, a compact pistol in an ankle holster. "Hale said come unarmed. I'd strongly suggest you don't listen. This is a Glock 43, 9mm, 6-round magazine, small enough to conceal, powerful enough to matter." Caleb took the weapon, checked it with practiced ease, then strapped it to his ankle. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You're walking into a tactical nightmare. Remote location, unknown number of hostiles, a child hostage, and an opponent with unlimited resources." Torres met his eyes. "The smart play is to call in the FBI, negotiate from a position of strength, wait him out. The smart play gets my daughter killed." "Maybe. Or maybe Hale is bluffing. Maybe he's not willing to murder a child in cold blood. Maybe—" "He killed his own son," Daniel interrupted, speaking for the first time, 3 weeks ago. "James was working with the FBI, building a case against him, and my father had him killed and made it look like an accident." His voice was hollow. "If he can do that to his own blood, what do you think he'll do to someone else's daughter?" Torres studied Daniel for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Point taken. Then let's make sure we're as prepared as possible." She pulled out a satellite photo of the area surrounding the address Hale had provided. "This is where you're meeting him. Old logging road, terminates at an abandoned mining camp. 3 structures still standing, main office, equipment shed, and a bunkhouse. Any one of them could be where he's holding your daughter." "Approaches?" Caleb asked, falling back into military mode. "Only one road in. Everything else is wilderness, heavy forest, steep terrain. If you need to run, you'll be doing it on foot." Torres pointed to several marked locations on the map. "I'll be here, on this ridgeline, line of sight to the main compound, close enough to hear if things go loud." "What about the flash drive?" Daniel asked. "Hale wants it. We can't exactly hand over real evidence." Torres reached into her backpack and pulled out an identical flash drive. "This contains financial records from an actual money laundering case we closed 5 years ago. Different players, different scheme, but the format and complexity are similar enough that it'll take Hale's people hours to realize it's not what they're looking for. It buys you time." "And the server location?" "Give him the Breckenridge cabin. We've already processed that scene. If he sends people there, they'll find nothing but federal agents waiting to ask questions." It was a plan. Not a great one, but better than walking in blind. Caleb took the fake flash drive, tucked it into his pocket beside the real one. Insurance, in case Hale had a way to verify the data before releasing Lily. One more thing, Torres said, her voice softer. Your daughter. 8 years old, dark hair, approximately 4 feet tall. Hale will be using her as a shield, keeping her close to prevent you from making aggressive moves. You need to be prepared for that. Need to be prepared for the possibility that you can't get a clean shot, that you might have to choose between taking him out and keeping her safe. There's no choice, Caleb said flatly. Lily comes first. Always. Even if it means Hale walks? Even then, Torres nodded, satisfied. Good, because the moment you prioritize revenge over her safety is the moment you both die. She checked her watch. You've got 68 minutes. I suggest you use the time to prepare mentally. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. She was wrong about that. The hardest thing Caleb had ever done was bury his wife. The hardest thing was explaining to Lily that Mommy wasn't coming home. The hardest thing was learning to live with the hole in his heart that Lisa's death had carved. This was just violence, and violence, at least, he understood. Torres left first, her sedan disappearing down the mountain road. Caleb stood in the parking lot with Daniel and Claire, the morning sun climbing higher, burning away the last traces of mist. You don't have to come, Caleb said to Daniel. This is my fight. It's mine too. He's my father. My responsibility. He'll use that. He'll try to manipulate you, make you hesitate. I know. Daniel's jaw was set. But I'm still coming. You'll need someone watching your back. Caleb wanted to argue, but the truth was Daniel was right. Going in alone was suicide. Having someone who knew Hale, who understood how he thought, might make the difference between life and death. Okay, he said finally. But you follow my lead. I was a ranger, did 2 tours in Afghanistan. I know close quarters combat, I know tactical entry, and I know how to operate in hostile environments. Can you follow orders? Yes. Even if I tell you to run, even if it means abandoning me? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. If it saves your daughter, yes. Good. Caleb turned to Claire. You've done enough. More than enough. Go back to Denver. Tell the FBI everything you know and stay somewhere safe. Claire shook her head. I've been Veronica's assistant for 10 years. I've watched her build an empire, watched her compromise her principles one piece at a time, watched her become someone I didn't recognize. And I did nothing. I kept my head down, collected my paycheck, told myself it wasn't my problem. Her voice cracked. Your wife tried to stop this 3 years ago, and she died for it. I won't make the same mistake. I won't look away. This isn't a protest march, Claire. This is a hostage rescue in hostile territory. You could die. Then I die doing something that matters. It was the same thing Daniel had said in the hospital corridor. The same thing Veronica had said about finally choosing to be brave. Caleb looked at these 2 people, virtual strangers 48 hours ago, now willing to risk everything for his daughter, for justice, for the memory of a woman they'd barely known. Lisa would have liked them, he thought, would have approved of their courage. Okay, he said quietly. But Claire, you stay in the car. You're our escape route, our backup plan. If things go wrong, Daniel and I need to know we can get Lily out fast. Claire nodded, relief and determination warring in her expression. They drove in silence toward the address Hale had provided, the mountains closing in around them. Caleb checked his weapons, the service pistol from his house, the ankle gun Torres had given him, a folding knife he'd carried since his army days. Not much against whatever Hale had waiting, but it would have to be enough. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Still at your house with local PD. They want to issue an Amber Alert. I'm stalling, but can't hold them much longer. Whatever you're doing, do it fast. Caleb typed back, 1 hour, trust me. The response was immediate. Always have. Don't make me regret it. The logging road appeared on their left, barely visible through the undergrowth. Claire turned onto it, the Honda bouncing over ruts and rocks. The road climbed steeply, winding through dense forest that blocked out the sun. After 20 minutes, the trees opened up to reveal the mining camp. It looked like something from a ghost town movie, Weathered wooden buildings listing at drunken angles, rusted equipment scattered like bones. The main office was the largest structure, 2 stories tall with most of its windows intact. The equipment shed was a collapsed ruin. The bunkhouse was surprisingly solid, smoke rising from its chimney. 3 vehicles were parked in the clearing, a black SUV, a white panel van, and Richard Hale's distinctive silver Mercedes. Caleb's pulse kicked up. This was it. No more planning, no more preparation, just action. Claire stopped the Honda at the edge of the clearing, engine idling. Last chance to call in the cavalry. The cavalry has a mole, Caleb reminded her. The second we bring in official help, Hale knows about it. He opened his door, then paused. If we're not out in 30 minutes, drive away. Go straight to the FBI, tell them everything. Don't try to be a hero. Same to you, Claire said. Caleb and Daniel got out, walking side by side across the clearing. The ground was soft from recent rain, their boots sinking slightly with each step. Caleb kept his hands visible, away from his weapons. The recorder on his chest was a reassuring weight, evidence that even if he died here, the truth would survive. The bunkhouse door opened. Richard Hale stepped out, and for the first time Caleb saw him in person rather than in photos or glimpsed through doorways. He was tall, distinguished, completely at ease despite the circumstances. He might have been greeting guests at a country club rather than conducting a hostage exchange in an abandoned mining camp. Mr. Morris. Daniel. Hale's voice carried across the clearing, warm and almost friendly. I'm glad you could make it, and I'm glad you were smart enough to follow my instructions. Where's my daughter? Caleb called back. Safe, for now. Hale gestured, and a man emerged from the bunkhouse. Thick-necked, military-bearing, the kind of private security contractor who did the jobs cops couldn't. He was holding Lily's hand. She looked so small next to him, still in her pajamas from this morning, her dark hair tangled, her face streaked with tears. But she was standing, moving under her own power, and when she saw Caleb, her whole face lit up. Daddy! She tried to run to him. The contractor held her back. Lily struggled, crying now, reaching for Caleb with desperate hands. Every instinct Caleb had screamed to run to her, to tear her away from these men, to put himself between her and danger. But he forced himself to stand still, to keep his hands visible, to show Hale he was cooperating. Let her go, he said, keeping his voice level. I brought what you wanted. Did you? Hale walked forward slowly, his shoes crunching on gravel. Did you bring the flash drive? The server location? Veronica's cooperation? The flash drive is here, Suede. Caleb pulled it from his pocket, the fake one Torres had given him. The server was in Veronica's cabin in Breckenridge, and as for her cooperation, she's in federal custody. There's nothing I can do about that. Hale's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Federal custody. How unfortunate. I was hoping we could resolve this quietly, as civilized people. There's nothing civilized about kidnapping a child. No, Hale agreed. But then, there's nothing civilized about destroying a man's life over ancient history. Your wife died 3 years ago, Mr. Morris. It's tragic, but it's done. Why couldn't you let it rest? Because it wasn't an accident, because you murdered her. I solved a problem. There's a difference. Hale was close now, close enough that Caleb could see the flecks of gray in his eyes, the careful grooming that spoke of wealth and privilege. Lisa Morris was going to cost me billions. Billions, Mr. Morris. She was going to destroy companies, put thousands of people out of work, wreck the economy of 3 states, all because she couldn't understand that sometimes the ends justify the means. She was doing her job. She was being honest. She was being naive. Hale held out his hand. The flash drive. Caleb tossed it to him. Hale caught it smoothly, examined it, then handed it to another man who'd emerged from the bunkhouse, younger, tech-savvy looking, carrying a laptop. The man plugged in the drive and started typing. This will take a few minutes to verify, Hale said. In the meantime, let's discuss Veronica. You say she's in federal custody. That's problematic. I need her to recant her accusations, to admit she fabricated evidence against me out of jealousy or mental illness or whatever story plays best. Can you make that happen? No. Then I'm afraid we have a problem. Hale glanced at the contractor holding Lily. You see, I can't have witnesses, can't have people walking around with knowledge that could destroy me, which means everyone involved in this unpleasantness needs to disappear. You're going to kill us all, Daniel said. His voice shook, but he stepped forward, placing himself beside Caleb. Your own son, an 8-year-old girl, a man who's done nothing except try to find the truth. That's who you are now? I'm a man who survives, Daniel. I'm a man who understands that power requires sacrifice. Hale looked at his son with something that might have been regret. I raised you to be strong, to be ruthless when necessary. But you're weak, like your mother, like James. Both of them too principled, too rigid, too stupid to understand how the world actually works. James was your son, Daniel said, his voice breaking. He was your son and you killed him. He betrayed me. He chose the FBI over his own blood. What was I supposed to do? Hale spread his hands. I gave him chances, opportunities to come back to the family, to remember where his loyalty belonged. But he chose wrong, just like you're choosing wrong now. The tech guy looked up from his laptop. This isn't the right data. These are records from a closed case 5 years old. Someone swapped the drives. Hale's expression went flat. He turned to Caleb with eyes like ice. You tried to deceive me. That was unwise. Let my daughter go and I'll get you the real drive. No, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is this. I'm going to hurt your daughter while you watch, slowly, until you tell me where the real evidence is. And then I'm going to kill all of you anyway because I'm tired of this game. He nodded to the contractor. The man pulled out a knife, pressed it to Lily's throat. She whimpered, tears streaming down her face. Daddy! Everything inside Caleb went cold and clear. This was the moment, the point where negotiation ended and violence began. He could see it in Hale's eyes, in the contractor's stance. They were done talking, done pretending this would end any way except in blood. Wait, Caleb said, pulling out the real flash drive. This is it, the real one. Just don't hurt her. Hale smiled, a thin, triumphant expression. Much better. Bring it here. Caleb walked forward slowly, every sense heightened. He could feel the weight of the ankle gun, could calculate the distance to Lily, could see Daniel shifting position in his peripheral vision. Torres was out there somewhere, watching, recording. Help was coming. He just had to keep everyone alive long enough for it to arrive. He was 10 feet from Hale when the gunshot rang out. It came from the tree line, a sharp crack that echoed off the mountains. The tech guy dropped, blood blooming across his chest. Everyone froze for a heartbeat. Then chaos erupted. The contractor shoved Lily away and reached for his gun. Caleb drew and fired in one smooth motion, his service pistol barking twice. The contractor went down, clutching his leg. Lily screamed and ran, stumbling toward Caleb. More gunshots from the bunkhouse, muzzle flashes in the windows, bullets kicking up dirt. Caleb grabbed Lily, tucking her against his chest, and ran for cover behind a rusted mining cart. Daniel was right behind him, breathing hard. Bullets spanged off metal, whined through the air. Stay down, Caleb ordered Lily, pressing her into the smallest space possible. Cover your ears and don't move. She nodded, terrified, and curled into a ball. Caleb popped up, returned fire at the bunkhouse. 2 shooters, maybe 3, professional grade. Hale had disappeared, probably into cover. Who's shooting from the trees? Daniel gasped. I don't know. Maybe Torres, maybe someone else. Caleb fired again, forcing one of the shooters back from the window. His mind raced. They were pinned down, outnumbered, with a child to protect. The Honda was 50 yards away across open ground, impossible to reach under fire. Another shot from the tree line, and one of Hale's shooters in the bunkhouse went down. Whoever was out there, they were good, military good. Caleb's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, northwest corner, drainage ditch. Go now. He looked. Sure enough, there was a depression in the ground leading away from the clearing, deep enough to provide cover. If they could reach it, they could escape into the forest. Daniel, grab Lily. We're moving. Caleb laid down covering fire, emptying his magazine toward the bunkhouse. Daniel scooped up Lily and ran, hunched low. Caleb reloaded his last magazine and followed, bullets chasing them across the ground. They tumbled into the ditch, sliding down muddy banks. Above them, gunfire continued, Hale's men shooting at shadows in the trees, at the phantom sniper who'd turned their ambush into a firefight. Caleb crawled forward, pulling Lily along, Daniel bringing up the rear. The ditch led into the forest, into dense undergrowth that swallowed them. Behind them, men shouted orders. An engine roared, the SUV, probably, trying to cut off their escape. They ran through the forest, branches whipping their faces, Lily gasping for breath. Caleb carried her when she stumbled, his arms burning, his lungs screaming. Daniel kept pace, crashing through brush like a panicked animal. A clearing opened ahead, and standing in it, rifle still raised, was Marcus. "About time you showed up," he said calmly. "I was running out of targets." Caleb almost laughed, almost cried. "How did you—" "I told you I'd come if you weren't back by dawn. It's past dawn." Marcus lowered his rifle, his scarred face split in a grin. "Plus Torres called me. Said you were walking into a trap and might need actual backup instead of FBI bureaucrats. So I came." "The local cops?" "Told them I had a lead on Lily's location and would call them when I had confirmation. They believed me because I'm very trustworthy looking." Marcus's expression sobered as he looked at Lily. "Hey kid, you okay?" Lily nodded, still pressed against Caleb's chest. "That was scary." "Yeah, but it's over now." Except it wasn't. Through the trees, Caleb could hear engines, voices, the sounds of pursuit. Hale wasn't giving up. He couldn't afford to. "We need to move," Marcus said. "I've got a truck half a mile north. We can—" The SUV burst through the tree line, engine roaring, tires spitting dirt. It was coming straight at them, accelerating. Behind the wheel, Caleb caught a glimpse of Richard Hale's face. No longer calm, no longer controlled, just rage and desperation. Marcus raised his rifle, fired. The windshield spiderwebbed, but didn't break. The SUV kept coming. They scattered. Marcus left. Daniel right. Caleb carrying Lily straight ahead into deeper forest. The SUV sideswiped a tree, metal, shrieking, then recovered and kept coming. Caleb ran, his daughter's weight nothing compared to the adrenaline flooding his system. Behind him, he could hear the SUV's engine, could hear branches snapping, could feel death closing in. Then the ground disappeared. He was falling, Lily tight in his arms, tumbling down a steep embankment. They hit water, cold, shocking, a mountain stream swollen with runoff. Caleb went under, his grip on Lily loosening. He kicked hard, broke the surface, gasping. "Lily!" She was there, struggling, choking on water. He grabbed her, pulled her to the shallow edge, dragged them both onto a gravel bar. Above them, the SUV's brakes squealed. A door opened. Richard Hale stood at the top of the embankment, silhouetted against the sky. He had a gun in his hand. "It didn't have to be this way," he called down. "I gave you a chance to walk away. Multiple chances." Caleb pushed Lily behind him, reaching for his ankle gun. His hands were numb from the cold water, clumsy. The gun slipped from the holster, fell into the stream. Hale raised his weapon, took careful aim. A shot rang out. But not from Hale's gun. From behind him. Daniel stood there, Claire's small pistol in his shaking hands. Smoke curled from the barrel. And Richard Hale, master manipulator, murderer of sons and wives, and anyone who stood in his way looked down at the blood spreading across his chest with an expression of pure surprise. "Daniel," he said, his voice confused, almost hurt. "Son?" Then he fell, tumbling down the embankment, hitting the water with a splash that sent ripples across the stream. He lay half submerged, his silver hair dark with blood, his eyes still open but seeing nothing. Daniel dropped the gun and sank to his knees, sobbing. Caleb stood in the freezing water, holding his daughter, watching the man who'd killed his wife die in a mountain stream. He should have felt triumph, vindication, justice. Instead, he just felt tired. Lily's voice, small and frightened. "Daddy? Is it over?" He pulled her close, felt her heartbeat against his chest. Alive, safe, his. "Yeah, baby, it's over." Marcus appeared at the top of the embankment, rifle still ready, then relaxed when he saw Hale's body. "Everyone alive down there?" "More or less." "Good. Because we've got federal agents incoming. Torres called it in the second the shooting started." Marcus extended a hand to help them up. Time to face the music. They climbed out of the stream, Caleb carrying Lily, Daniel moving like a sleepwalker, all of them soaked and shaking. Claire was there with the Honda, and Torres behind her with 2 other agents. The sound of helicopters echoed through the mountains. It was over. Richard Hale was dead, his empire exposed, his crimes finally catching up to him. And Caleb's daughter was safe, traumatized but alive, held tight in his arms where she belonged. The rest, the questions, the debriefing, the media circus, the trials, all of that could wait. For now, there was just this: Lily's heartbeat, Marcus's solid presence, the morning sun breaking through the trees. Justice, messy and imperfect and bloodstained, but justice nonetheless. Agent Morrison arrived in the second helicopter, took one look at Hale's body, and sighed. Well, this complicates things. He was trying to kill us, Caleb said flatly. All of us, including my daughter. I believe you. The recording backs that up. We got everything, Morris. Every confession, every threat. It's damning. Morrison looked at Daniel, who was still kneeling by the stream, staring at his father's body. The shooter was Hale's son. You all saw that, correct? Marcus nodded. Self-defense, clear as day. Hale had a weapon, was actively trying to kill multiple people, including a child. Daniel stopped him. That's the story, then. Morrison pulled out her phone, started making calls. Local PD is going to want statements. FBI will want to debrief everyone. And Child Services will need to check on your daughter, Morris. Standard procedure after a trauma like this. She's not going anywhere without me. I wouldn't dream of separating you, but we need to do this by the book, or Hale's lawyers, and he's got a lot of them, will find ways to muddy the waters, to create doubt about what happened here. The next hours were a blur. Statements given, evidence collected, bodies removed. Veronica Steele was brought to the scene, against medical advice, but insistent on seeing it through. She looked at Hale's body without expression, then turned to Caleb. Thank you, she said simply, for saving me. For finishing what your wife started, for being braver than I was. I didn't do it for you, Caleb replied. I did it for Lisa. And for Lily. I know, but I'm grateful anyway. Veronica looked at Daniel. I'm sorry. I know he was your father, no matter what he did. Daniel didn't respond. He'd gone somewhere inside himself, somewhere deep and dark where Caleb couldn't reach. The trauma of killing your own father, even a father who was a monster, that would take years to process. Maybe a lifetime. By the time they made it back to Pagosa Springs, it was evening. The house looked exactly as Caleb had left it. Lisa's books, her coffee mug, her memory preserved like amber. But something felt different. Lighter, maybe. Or maybe just finished. He tucked Lily into bed, staying with her until she fell asleep. She'd been quiet since the stream, processing in that way children did. Tomorrow she'd have questions. Tomorrow there'd be therapy, explanations, the long work of healing. But tonight, she just needed to sleep in her own bed, safe in her own home. Marcus was in the kitchen when Caleb came downstairs, making coffee like he'd been doing it in this house for years. She okay? He asked. She will be. Eventually. Caleb accepted the cup Marcus offered. Thank you for coming, for saving us. You do the same for me. In a heartbeat. They sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee, watching the darkness settle over the mountains. After a while, Marcus said, You got justice, brother. For Lisa. That's got to mean something. It does, Caleb agreed. But it doesn't bring her back. Doesn't erase 3 years of grief. Doesn't give Lily her mother. No, but it gives you truth, and maybe that's enough. Maybe it was. Caleb thought about Lisa. About the woman who'd been brave enough to stand against corruption, who died trying to do the right thing. She'd been gone 3 years, but her impact, her courage, had rippled forward, touching Veronica, inspiring a change, ultimately bringing down the monster who'd killed her. That meant something. That mattered. His phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. I'm leaving Colorado, going somewhere quiet to figure out who I am without my father's shadow. Thank you for letting me help. Tell Lily she's brave, just like her mom. Caleb texted back. You're brave too. Take care of yourself. Then he set the phone aside and looked around his house, at Lisa's things, at the life they'd built, at the memories that filled every corner. Tomorrow he'd start thinking about the future, about healing, about what came next. But tonight, he'd just remember. Remember Lisa's laugh, her passion, her courage, her love. And he'd hold on to the truth they'd fought so hard to find, that she hadn't died in vain, that her sacrifice had meant something, that in the end, messy and violent and imperfect as it was, justice had prevailed. Outside, the Colorado stars burned bright and cold, watching over a father and daughter who'd walked through fire and survived. The long night was ending, and in the distance, barely visible, dawn was beginning to break. Dawn came too quickly, painting the mountains in shades of rose and gold that seemed almost obscene in their beauty. Caleb hadn't slept. He'd sat in Lisa's favorite chair, the one by the window where she used to read, and watched the night slowly surrender to morning. Marcus had crashed on the couch around 3, his snoring a familiar comfort. Upstairs, Lily slept the exhausted sleep of a child who'd seen too much, her small body finally allowed to rest after hours of terror. The knock came at 6:30, soft, respectful, but insistent. Caleb opened the door to find Agent Morrison standing on his porch, 2 coffees in hand and dark circles under her eyes that matched his own. "Thought you might need this," she said, offering one of the cups, "and thought we should talk before the circus really gets started." Caleb let her in, grateful for the strong coffee and the momentary reprieve. Morrison settled at his kitchen table, pulling out a folder thick with documents. "The recording from yesterday is solid gold," she began without preamble. "Hale confessed to ordering your wife's murder. He confessed to attempting to kill Veronica Steele. He made statements about money laundering, human trafficking, and operating a criminal enterprise spanning 2 decades. Any decent prosecutor could get a conviction based on that alone, if he were alive to prosecute. But he's not. No. Which means our focus shifts to dismantling his organization and prosecuting his associates." Morrison opened the folder, revealing photographs of men and women Caleb didn't recognize. Hale didn't operate alone. He had lawyers who structured his deals, accountants who cooked his books, enforcers who carried out his orders. We're talking about dozens of people, maybe hundreds, who enabled his crimes. And you want me to help you catch them. I want you to testify. Grand jury first, then at trial, if it comes to that. Your story, finding Veronica, uncovering the truth about Lisa, confronting Hale. It's compelling. It humanizes what could otherwise be dismissed as just white-collar crime. Morrison's expression softened. "I know it's asking a lot. I know you just want to put this behind you and focus on your daughter. But these people destroyed your family. Don't you want to see them answer for it?" Caleb looked at the photographs spread across his table. All these strangers who'd participated in his wife's murder, even if they'd never pulled a trigger. Did he want justice for them too? Or was he too tired, too hollowed out to care anymore? "I'll testify," he said finally, "but on one condition. Lily doesn't get dragged into this. No interviews, no court appearances, nothing that forces her to relive what happened. She's 8 years old. She deserves a chance at a normal childhood." "Agreed. We can protect her identity, keep her name out of all official documents. As far as the public is concerned, she was never involved." Morrison gathered the photos back into the folder. "There's something else you should know. Veronica Steele is cooperating fully with our investigation. She's provided access to offshore accounts, shell companies, internal communications, everything. Her lawyers are negotiating a plea deal, but she's insisting on serving time. Says she doesn't want immunity, doesn't want to walk away clean." "She shouldn't," Caleb said flatly. "She knew what Hale was doing. She facilitated it. The fact that she finally grew a conscience doesn't erase her guilt." "I agree, but her cooperation is invaluable. Without it, we'd be looking at years of litigation, resources we don't have, evidence we might never find. With it, we can take down Hale's entire network within months. So she trades information for a lighter sentence." "Probably, but she'll still go to prison, Mr. Morris. She'll lose everything, her company, her reputation, her freedom. That has to count for something." Did it? Caleb wasn't sure. Justice felt slippery lately, less like a clear line between right and wrong and more like a muddy compromise where everyone lost something. But maybe that was the point. Maybe real justice wasn't about perfect outcomes. Maybe it was just about making sure the truth came out, consequences be damned. There's going to be media attention, Morrison continued, a lot of it. Billionaire real estate mogul murdered by his own son after kidnapping a child and ordering multiple hits. It's going to be everywhere, cable news, social media, probably a dozen podcasts within the week. We can't stop that, but we can control the narrative somewhat, make sure the facts get out there before conspiracy theories take over. I don't want to be on TV. You won't have to be. We'll handle press conferences, official statements. You just focus on healing, on being there for your daughter. Morrison stood, leaving the folder on the table. That has your contact information. My direct line, the prosecutor's office, victim services, use them. Don't try to handle this alone. She left the way she'd come, quietly, leaving Caleb alone with his coffee and a folder full of strangers who'd helped kill his wife. He was still sitting there when Lily came downstairs an hour later, her hair a mess, her pajamas wrinkled. "Morning, kiddo," he said, injecting warmth into his voice he didn't feel. "Hungry?" She nodded, climbing into the chair across from him. For a moment she just stared at the table, at the folder Morrison had left, at the normal domestic scene that felt anything but normal. "Is the bad man really dead?" she asked finally. "Yes." "Good." She said it with such fierce conviction that Caleb's heart broke a little. He hurt people. He hurt Mom. He did. But he can't hurt anyone anymore. Because Daniel shot him. Caleb closed his eyes briefly. She'd seen it. Of course she'd seen it. She'd been right there when Daniel pulled the trigger, when Richard Hale fell into the stream. Another trauma to add to the collection. Another wound that would take years to heal. "Daniel did what he had to do to protect us," Caleb said carefully. "Sometimes good people have to do hard things to stop bad people. That doesn't make them bad. It just makes them brave. Like Mom was brave. Exactly like that." Lily fell silent, processing. Then, in a very small voice, "So scared, Daddy. When that man had the knife, I thought I was going to die. Like Mom did." Caleb came around the table and pulled her into his arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs she'd been holding back since yesterday. He held her while she cried, murmuring comfort, being the anchor she needed. This was what mattered. Not justice, not revenge, not prosecuting Hale's associates. Just this. Being here for his daughter, helping her survive the unsurvivable. When her tears finally subsided, he made her pancakes, Mickey Mouse-shaped, the way Lisa used to make them. Lily managed 3 bites before pushing the plate away. "Can I stay home from school?" she asked. "You can stay home for the rest of the week, maybe longer, whatever you need." "Are we going to move, like on TV when people are in danger and they have to get new names and hide?" "No, baby. We're staying right here. This is our home. Nobody's going to chase us away from it." But even as he said it, Caleb wondered if that was true. Could they really stay in this house, in this town, with the ghosts of Lisa and Richard Hale and everything that had happened? Or would the memories become too heavy, too poisonous, driving them away to start over somewhere new? Marcus emerged from the living room, looking rumpled but alert. "Morning, Princess," he said to Lily, ruffling her hair. "Sleep okay?" She shrugged. Marcus caught Caleb's eye over her head, a wordless question. How is she really? Caleb shook his head slightly. Not okay. Not close to okay. "Tell you what," Marcus said to Lily. "After breakfast, how about we go outside and see if we can spot that eagle's nest your dad told me about? The one up the mountain?" "The one Mom found?" "That's the one. She took some amazing pictures of it. Maybe we can see if the eagles are still there." It was exactly the right thing to say. Lily's face brightened slightly, some of the fear receding. "Can we, Daddy?" "Sure, but not too far. And Marcus carries the radio in case we need to come back quick." They spent the morning hiking, not far, just to the lower trail where Lisa had spotted the eagle's nest 4 years ago. The nest was still there, a massive construction of sticks and grass perched impossibly high in a dead pine. And amazingly, there were eagles. 2 adults and a juvenile, soaring in lazy circles overhead. Lily watched them with wonder, temporarily forgetting her trauma. Marcus pointed out details. The white head feathers of the adults, The brown plumage of the juvenile, the incredible wingspan that let them ride the thermals for hours without flapping. Your mom would have loved this, Marcus said softly. She always said eagles were survivors, strong and smart, and never giving up. She was like an eagle, Lily said, brave and beautiful. Yeah, she was. They stayed for an hour, just watching, letting the beauty of the moment wash over them. Then Lily grew quiet again, tired, and they headed back. But it had been good, Caleb thought. A brief respite. A reminder that there was still wonder in the world, still beauty, still reasons to keep going. The afternoon brought less pleasant visitors. A child psychologist from county services, mandated to evaluate Lily after her abduction. A lawyer specializing in victims' rights, offering to represent Caleb in any civil suits against Hale's estate. A reporter who somehow got past the deputy stationed at the end of the driveway and had to be escorted away by Marcus with firm and colorful language. By evening, Caleb was exhausted. He ordered pizza, Lily's favorite, extra cheese, and they ate on the couch while watching a Disney movie that required no thought, no emotional processing, just bright colors and silly songs. Marcus left around 8, promising to return in the morning, and suddenly the house felt too quiet. Caleb was putting Lily to bed when she grabbed his hand. Will you stay until I fall asleep? Of course. He lay beside her on the small bed, the same bed Lisa used to read bedtime stories in, and held his daughter while she fought sleep. She was afraid, he knew. Afraid that if she closed her eyes, she'd wake up back in that bunkhouse with strangers and knives and danger. Afraid that her father would disappear like her mother had. I'm not going anywhere, he whispered. I promise. I'm right here. Finally, her breathing evened out. Caleb waited another 10 minutes to be sure, then carefully extracted himself and crept downstairs. The house felt different at night now, less like a shrine to Lisa and more like a battlefield they'd barely survived. Every shadow held menace. Every creak was a threat. He was pouring himself a bourbon, his first drink in 3 years, needed desperately, when his phone rang. Daniel. Hey, Caleb answered. How are you holding up? I'm in Montana. Drove through the night. Daniel's voice was hollow, scraped raw. Found a cabin my mom used to rent before she died. Middle of nowhere, no cell service except on the ridge. It's quiet. Quiet's good sometimes. Yeah. A long pause. I killed him, Caleb. I killed my own father. You saved us, me, Lily, Claire, maybe Marcus too. Your father was going to kill all of us. You stopped him. I know that up here, Daniel must have tapped his head. But I don't feel it. I just feel like a murderer. Like I'm no better than he was. You're nothing like him. He killed for money, for power, to cover his crimes. You killed to save innocent lives. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? We're both killers, both covered in blood. How is that different? Caleb thought about Afghanistan, about the men he'd killed in combat, about the nightmares that had followed him home. The difference is what you do next. Your father would have justified it, rationalized it, never lost a moment's sleep. You're calling me at 10 o'clock at night, barely holding yourself together, because you actually have a conscience. That's the difference. Daniel made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I don't know how to live with this. You talk to someone, a therapist, a counselor, someone trained in trauma. You don't try to tough it out alone. And you remember that you're a good person who did a terrible thing for the right reasons. That has to mean something. Does it? Mean something? Yeah, it does. Your father was a monster, but you're not. You proved that when you made the hardest choice of your life. You chose right over easy. That took courage. Another long silence. Then, very quietly, thank you for letting me help, for not shutting me out when you had every reason to. You're family now, Caleb said, surprising himself with the truth of it. You and Veronica and Claire. We went through hell together. That creates bonds. I'd like to think so. I'd like to think something good came out of all this horror. They talked for another 20 minutes, Daniel gradually sounding less hollow, less lost. When they hung up, Caleb felt marginally better. At least Daniel was safe. At least he was trying. The bourbon went down smooth, warming him from the inside. He was contemplating a second glass when someone knocked on the door. It was late, nearly 11, and his hand went automatically to the pistol he now kept in the hall table drawer. But when he checked the peephole, he saw Claire standing on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself against the cold. He opened the door. "Is everything okay?" "I don't know," she admitted. "I'm staying at a hotel in Durango. The FBI offered to put me in protective custody, but I couldn't stand it. The isolation, the fear. I kept thinking about Veronica, about everything that happened, and I needed to see you, to make sure you and Lily were really okay." Caleb stepped aside, letting her in. She looked exhausted, worn down by the same trauma that was eating at all of them. He poured her a bourbon without asking, and she accepted it gratefully. "How's Lily?" Claire asked. "Traumatized but alive. She's sleeping now, hopefully without nightmares." "And you?" "Same." Caleb sat across from her. "Claire, you didn't have to come all this way. A phone call would have been fine." "I needed to see it. Needed to see you living your life, being a father, surviving. Because if you can do it, if you can keep going after everything you've lost, then maybe I can too." Claire's eyes were wet. "I worked for Veronica for 10 years. 10 years I looked the other way while she made deals with monsters. I told myself it wasn't my business, that I was just an assistant, that I couldn't change anything. And your wife died because people like me didn't speak up. You spoke up when it mattered. At the hospital, in the car, at the mining camp. You could have run at any point, but you stayed. You helped save my daughter. Does that balance the scales? Does one good deed erase 10 years of cowardice?" Caleb thought about Veronica, about her plea for forgiveness, about the impossible calculus of redemption. "I don't know, maybe the scales never balance. Maybe we just try to tip them a little less toward evil and hope that's enough." Claire laughed bitterly. "That's depressing." "Yeah, but it's honest." They sat in companionable silence, sipping bourbon, two people trying to make sense of senseless things. After a while, Claire said, "Veronica wants to see you when she's recovered enough. She asked me to tell you that she'd understand if you refused, but she hopes you'll give her a chance to apologize properly." "I'll think about it. She's going to prison, you know. Even with the plea deal, she's looking at 15 to 20 years. She's 52. She'll be in her 70s when she gets out." "Good. You really hate her that much?" Caleb considered the question. Did he hate Veronica Steele? Or was it more complicated than that? She'd enabled Lisa's death, but she'd also finally tried to make it right. She'd been a coward, and then she'd been brave. She'd been guilty, and then she'd sought justice. How did you hate someone who contained that many contradictions? "I don't hate her," he said finally, "but I don't forgive her either. Maybe someday, but not today." Claire nodded, accepting that. "I should go, let you get some rest." "You could stay. Guest room's empty. Save yourself the drive back to Durango." She looked surprised, then grateful. "Thank you. I'd like that." He showed her to the guest room, the room that had been Lisa's office, converted after her death into generic spare space. Claire thanked him again and closed the door, leaving Caleb alone in the hallway. He checked on Lily one more time, still sleeping, her face peaceful, then returned to the living room. The bourbon bottle called to him, promising oblivion, but he resisted. Getting drunk wouldn't help, wouldn't change anything, wouldn't bring Lisa back or erase Lily's trauma or make the future any clearer. Instead, he pulled out the box he'd been avoiding for 3 years. Lisa's personal effects, the things the police had returned after the accident, her phone, her wallet, her wedding ring that she'd taken off because it kept catching on her keyboard. And beneath it all, her work laptop. He'd never looked at it, couldn't bear to. But now, with Veronica's confession and Hale's recording and the full truth finally exposed, maybe it was time. He booted it up. It was password protected, but Caleb knew Lisa's passwords. She'd always used variations of their anniversary. Sure enough, the fourth attempt worked, and suddenly he was staring at her desktop, at the files she'd been working on in the days before she died. There, in a folder labeled simply Evidence, were dozens of documents, spreadsheets tracking money flows, emails between Veronica and Hale discussing problematic expenses and necessary adjustments, bank records showing millions moving through shell companies, and most damning of all, a video file dated 3 days before Lisa's death. Caleb clicked it. Lisa's face filled the screen, tired but determined. If you're watching this, it means something happened to me, she began, and Caleb's breath caught. I've been investigating irregularities in Steel Development's finances for 6 months. At first I thought it was just sloppy bookkeeping, but the deeper I dug, the worse it got. Money laundering, drug money, trafficking proceeds, millions of dollars flowing through our accounts from sources that should never have passed compliance. She looked directly at the camera, at Caleb 3 years in the future, and her expression was fierce. I tried to tell Veronica, tried to make her understand the legal jeopardy we're in, the moral implications. She told me to stop digging, to focus on other projects. But I can't. I can't look the other way while children are trafficked and families are destroyed just so rich people can get richer. Lisa paused, choosing her words carefully. I've made copies of everything. The originals are going to the FBI tomorrow, but I've hidden backups in 3 locations. If something happens to me, if this evidence disappears, someone needs to find them. Someone needs to finish what I started. She listed 3 locations: a storage unit in Durango, a safe deposit box in Pagosa Springs, and her sister's house in Nebraska. Then she looked at the camera one more time, and her expression softened. Caleb, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for leaving you and Lily, but I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent. You taught me that, you know. You showed me what courage looks like, what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself. I'm trying to be as brave as you were. Tears were streaming down Caleb's face now, silent and hot. Take care of our girl, Lisa continued. Tell her every day how much I love her, and tell her that her mom tried to do the right thing, even when it was hard, even when it cost everything, because that's what matters in the end, not how long you live, but whether you lived with integrity. The video ended. Caleb sat staring at the frozen image of his wife's face, this message from beyond the grave, and something inside him shifted. She'd known. Lisa had known she was in danger, had known she might die, and she'd done it anyway, not because she was reckless, but because she was brave, because she believed some things were worth dying for. He'd spent 3 years mourning her loss. Maybe it was time to start honoring her sacrifice instead. He forwarded the video to Agent Morrison with a short message. Lisa made backup copies of all her evidence, 3 locations. Let's make sure her death wasn't for nothing. Then he closed the laptop and sat in the darkness, feeling Lisa's presence around him, not as a ghost, but as an inspiration. She'd shown him the way. Now he just had to follow it. The next morning brought news. Agent Morrison called at 7, her voice tight with barely contained excitement. We found the storage unit. Everything Lisa documented is there. Financial records, communications, witness statements she'd collected. It's prosecutorial gold, Morris. We're talking about cases that will take down not just Hale's organization, but their partners, their enablers, their entire network. How many people? Preliminary count? Over 60 individuals and a dozen corporations. We're looking at RICO charges, money laundering, trafficking, fraud, conspiracy. This is going to be the biggest organized crime prosecution in Colorado history. Caleb should have felt triumph, should have felt vindicated. Instead, he just felt tired. And Lisa, does she get credit for this? Does anyone know she's the one who did the real work? Absolutely. We're preparing a statement acknowledging her investigation and sacrifice. She'll be recognized as a hero, Morris. I promise you that. A hero. Lisa would have hated that. She'd never wanted recognition, never sought glory. She just wanted to do the right thing. But maybe that was the truest kind of heroism, the kind that didn't care about credit, only about justice. The rest of the week passed in a blur of activity. Grand jury testimony, victim advocate meetings, therapy sessions for Lily with a specialist in childhood trauma. The media circus Morrison had predicted came with full force. Satellite trucks parked at the end of the driveway, reporters shouting questions whenever Caleb left the house, talking heads on cable news dissecting every aspect of the case. Caleb refused all interview requests. Let the FBI handle the narrative. Let prosecutors make their cases. His job was simpler. Be there for Lily, help her heal, show her that the world was still safe despite everything she'd seen. A week after Hale's death, Veronica was transferred from the hospital to federal custody. She called Caleb from the detention center, her voice weak but determined. I won't ask for forgiveness, she said. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I've given the FBI everything, every account, every document, every name. I'm going to testify against everyone involved, including myself. And whatever time I serve, I'll serve it knowing I finally did the right thing." "It doesn't bring her back," Caleb said. "All your cooperation, all your testimony. Lisa is still dead." "I know. And I have to live with that. But maybe her death can still mean something. Maybe the lives we save by taking down these networks, the children we rescue from trafficking, the families we protect, maybe that can be her legacy. Not a perfect redemption, but something." Caleb thought about Lisa's video message, about her belief in fighting for things bigger than yourself. Yeah, maybe that's something. "Thank you," Veronica whispered, "for not hating me, for letting me try to make this right." "I never said I don't hate you," Caleb replied. "I just said I understand why you're doing this. Those aren't the same thing." "No, but I'll take understanding over hatred. It's more than I deserve." She hung up. Caleb stood with the phone in his hand, wondering if he'd just lied. Did he really understand, or was he just so tired of hating that he'd chosen numbness instead? 2 weeks after the confrontation, Marcus had to return to his security job in Phoenix. They said goodbye on the porch, two old soldiers who'd survived another battle. "You going to be okay?" Marcus asked. "Eventually, maybe." Caleb managed to smile. "Thanks for everything, for coming when I called, for saving Lily, for all of it. That's what brothers do. And Caleb, Lisa would be proud of you, the way you fought for the truth, the way you're taking care of Lily. She'd be proud." After Marcus left, the house felt emptier, but not in a bad way. More like space had opened up, room for new things to grow. Caleb started making changes. Small ones at first. He moved Lisa's books from the living room to his bedroom, where he could look at them privately. He washed her coffee mug and put it in the back of the cabinet, preserving it, but not worshiping it. He took down the photos that hurt the most and boxed them away, keeping only the ones that made him smile. It wasn't about forgetting Lisa. It was about learning to live alongside her memory instead of being crushed by it. Lily noticed the changes. One evening, watching him pack away some of Lisa's things, she asked, "Are you trying to forget Mom?" "No, baby, never. I'm just making room for us to keep living. Mom wouldn't want us to turn this house into a museum. She'd want us to grow and change and move forward." "But we still remember her? Every day, in everything we do. The way you're brave when you're scared, the way I try to do the right thing even when it's hard. That's Mom. She's part of us now." Lily thought about this, then nodded. "Okay, I think Mom would like that." A month after Hale's death, Daniel returned from Montana. He looked thinner, haunted, but somehow more present than he'd been before. He and Caleb met at a coffee shop in Durango, neutral territory, and talked for hours. "I've been seeing a therapist," Daniel said, 3 times a week. "Working through what happened, what I did, who my father was. It's hell, honestly, but it's necessary." "How are you doing financially? Hale's assets are frozen while the investigation continues." "I don't want his money, not a penny of it. I'm talking to prosecutors about donating everything to victim restitution funds, trafficking prevention organizations, whatever makes sense. Let some good come from his evil." "That's generous." "It's selfish, actually. I can't sleep knowing I'm living off blood money. This way maybe I can start to forgive myself." Daniel stirred his coffee. "I've been thinking about what comes next, who I want to be. And I think I want to work in victim advocacy. Help people like your wife, like Veronica, like everyone my father destroyed. Use my inside knowledge of how these organizations work to take them down from within. That's dangerous work. Yeah, but meaningful. And I need my life to mean something after all this." They parted with a handshake that turned into a hug, 2 men bound by trauma and truth trying to find their way forward. 6 weeks after everything fell apart, Lily went back to school. She'd been nervous, afraid of questions from classmates, worried about nightmares during nap time. But Caleb had worked with her teachers, with the school counselor preparing them for her return. And when he picked her up that first day, she was smiling. "How was it?" he asked. "Okay. Everyone was nice. Nobody asked about the bad stuff. We just did math and read books and played at recess." She buckled her seatbelt. "It felt normal, Daddy. For the first time in forever, it felt normal." Normal. What a beautiful word. What an impossible goal. But they were getting there, slowly, one day at a time. That evening, Caleb made dinner, Lisa's famous lasagna recipe, which he'd avoided for 3 years. It wasn't perfect. The noodles were slightly overcooked and he'd forgotten to add enough oregano. But Lily ate 2 helpings and declared it delicious, and that felt like victory. After dinner, they sat on the porch and watched the stars come out over the mountains. The same mountains where Caleb had found Veronica, where everything had started. But they looked different now, less like monuments to tragedy and more like witnesses to survival. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was soft in the darkness. "Do you think Mom knows? About everything that happened?" Caleb thought about Lisa's video message, about her certainty that truth mattered more than safety. "Yeah, baby, I think she knows. And I think she's proud of us for finishing what she started. I hope so. I want her to be proud." "She is. I promise you that." They sat in comfortable silence, father and daughter, survivors of a storm that should have destroyed them. But they were still here, still breathing, still finding reasons to smile. And that, Caleb thought, was its own kind of justice. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Agent Morrison appeared at the door with news that made Caleb's heart race. "We executed search warrants on Hale Mining Corporation's headquarters yesterday," she said. "Found evidence of operations in 7 countries, connections to cartels in Mexico and Colombia, trafficking routes through Central America. It's massive, Morris, bigger than we imagined. And we found something else. Communications between Hale and a corrupt Colorado state senator. Evidence of bribes, of laws passed specifically to benefit his operations, of investigations quashed before they could threaten him. The senator is resigning today. There will be criminal charges. Justice, spreading like ripples in a pond. 1 death, 1 confrontation, cascading into dozens of prosecutions. Lisa's work, continuing 3 years after her murder. There's something else," Morrison continued. "The FBI director wants to award Lisa posthumously for her investigative work. It's unprecedented. Usually these commendations go to agents, not civilian contractors. But what she did, what she sacrificed, it deserves recognition." "When?" "Next month, in Washington. You and Lily would be invited to accept the award on her behalf." Morrison paused. "I know it's a lot to ask, a long trip, a public ceremony, reliving painful memories, but it would mean something. It would show the world who Lisa Morris really was." Caleb looked back into the house, where Lily was drawing at the kitchen table. Could he ask her to do this? To fly across the country? To stand in front of cameras and officials? To hear strangers praise a mother she barely remembered? But then he thought about Lisa's message, about integrity, about fighting for things that mattered, about living a life worth honoring, and he knew what his answer had to be. "We'll be there," he said. "Lisa deserves to be remembered, and Lily deserves to know her mother was a hero." Morrison smiled, a genuine expression, warm and proud. "Thank you for everything you've done, everything you've survived. Lisa was lucky to have you. I was lucky to have her." After Morrison left, Caleb sat Lily down and told her about the award ceremony. She listened carefully, processing, then asked, "Will I have to make a speech?" "Only if you want to. Nobody's going to force you to do anything you're not comfortable with." I think I want to. I want to tell people about Mom, about how brave she was. Is that okay?" Caleb pulled her close, this fierce little girl who'd inherited her mother's courage. "That's perfect, baby. Mom would love that." The weeks leading up to the ceremony passed in preparation. Lily worked with her therapist on what she wanted to say, crafting words that honored Lisa without drowning in grief. Caleb bought them both new clothes, something respectful but not morbid, celebratory rather than funereal. And together they went through photo albums, remembering the good times, the laughter, the life they'd shared before everything went wrong. The night before they left for Washington, Caleb couldn't sleep. He stood in the backyard looking up at the stars, talking to Lisa the way he sometimes did when the loneliness got too heavy. "I hope we're doing this right," he said to the darkness. "Raising Lily, seeking justice, trying to move forward. I hope you'd approve. Hope you'd be proud." The stars offered no answer, but Caleb felt, just for a moment, a sense of peace. Lisa was gone, but her impact remained. And maybe that was enough. Maybe legacy was more important than presence, influence more lasting than life. In Washington, the ceremony was held in the FBI's headquarters, a massive building that somehow managed to be both imposing and bureaucratic. Caleb and Lily were ushered into a conference room filled with important people: the FBI director, various assistant directors, prosecutors from 3 states, and families of other victims whose cases had been built on Lisa's evidence. When it came time for Lily to speak, Caleb held his breath. She was so small standing at that podium, her prepared notes trembling in her hands. But when she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "My mom was the bravest person I ever knew," Lily began. "She wasn't afraid of bad people or hard choices. She always said that doing the right thing matters more than being safe. And even though she's not here anymore, even though I miss her every single day, I'm proud to be her daughter. Because she showed me that one person can make a difference. That truth is worth fighting for. That courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when she finished. The FBI director presented the award, a plaque engraved with Lisa's name and a citation describing her extraordinary courage in the face of mortal danger, dedication to justice, and sacrifice in service of protecting others. Caleb accepted it, feeling the weight of it, the permanence. This was real. This was Lisa's legacy, carved in bronze and crystal, acknowledged by the highest levels of law enforcement. She hadn't died in vain. Her work had mattered. And now everyone knew it. After the ceremony, people approached them, prosecutors thanking them, agents sharing how Lisa's evidence had broken their cases wide open, families of trafficking victims expressing gratitude. Caleb shook hands and accepted condolences, but his attention was on Lily, watching her process all of this, seeing her understand for the first time just how important her mother had been. They flew home the next day, exhausted but somehow lighter. Lily fell asleep on the plane, the award certificate clutched in her hands. Caleb watched her sleep and thought about the future, about therapy and healing, about school plays and birthday parties, about all the normal moments that had seemed impossible 6 weeks ago. They would be okay. Not right away, not without scars, but they would survive this. They would honor Lisa by living fully, by being brave, by choosing truth even when lies were easier. The plane landed in Colorado as the sun set, painting the mountains in shades of purple and gold. Home. They were home. And for the first time in 3 years, that word felt real again. 3 months after Washington, autumn arrived in the Colorado mountains with its usual spectacular violence. Aspens turning gold overnight, the air sharp with the promise of snow, the elk beginning their migration down from the high country. Caleb stood in his backyard watching Lily chase falling leaves, her laughter carrying across the yard like music. She'd gained weight, lost the hollow look that had haunted her face after the kidnapping. The nightmares still came sometimes, but less frequently. She was healing. They both were. The phone rang. Caleb almost didn't answer. He'd learned to screen calls to protect their hard-won peace from reporters and curiosity seekers and people who wanted to monetize their trauma. But the number was familiar. Agent Morrison. "We got the verdicts," she said without preamble. "Guilty on all counts. Hale's entire network, 63 defendants, over 200 charges. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Caleb sat down heavily on the porch steps. "All of them?" "Every single one. The CFO who cooked the books, the lawyers who structured the deals, the enforcers who carried out the violence, even the state senator who took bribes. They're all going to prison, Morris, decades, most of them. Some will die behind bars." It should have felt like victory, should have felt like the end of something. Instead, Caleb just felt empty. And Veronica? "Sentencing is next month. Prosecution is recommending 20 years. She'll probably serve 15 with good behavior. But she'll be in her late 60s when she gets out. Her company is being dismantled, assets liquidated to pay restitution to victims. Everything she built is gone." "Good." Morrison paused. "Is it?" She cooperated fully. Without her testimony, half these convictions wouldn't have happened. She's trying to make amends. She's trying to ease her conscience. Those aren't the same thing. Caleb watched Lily spin in circles, arms outstretched, catching leaves. My wife died because Veronica was too cowardly to stand up to Hale. No amount of cooperation changes that. No, but it does something. It saves future victims, dismantles criminal networks, brings justice to families who've been waiting years for answers. That has to count for something. Maybe. Caleb stood, brushing dirt from his jeans. Thanks for letting me know about the verdicts. There's one more thing. Daniel Hale has been working with us, using his inside knowledge to identify other operations similar to his father's. He's helped take down 3 trafficking rings in the past 2 months, saved over 40 children. Morrison's voice softened. He's doing good work, Morris. Real good. Thought you'd want to know. After they hung up, Caleb stood on his porch feeling the weight of it all. The verdicts, the sentencing, the ripples that kept spreading from that moment in the mountains when he'd pulled a dying woman from her grave. Lisa's sacrifice had started a cascade that was still unfolding, still bringing down monsters, still saving lives. It was everything she would have wanted. But God, the cost had been high. That evening, as he was making dinner, someone knocked on the door. Caleb opened it to find Claire standing there, looking nervous and hopeful. I should have called first, she said, but I was in the area and I thought, I hoped it would be okay to stop by. Come in, Caleb stepped aside. We're just making spaghetti, nothing fancy, but you're welcome to stay. Claire's face lit up. I'd like that. Thank you. Over dinner, she caught them up on her life. She'd left Colorado, moved to Seattle, taken a job with a nonprofit that helped trafficking survivors rebuild their lives. The work was hard, and the pay was terrible, but it mattered. It meant something. I see their faces sometimes, Claire said, pushing pasta around her plate. The women we help. And I think about how many of them might have been saved if I'd spoken up sooner. If I'd questioned Veronica's decisions, reported the irregularities, done literally anything except keep my head down and collect my paycheck. You can't change the past, Caleb said gently. You can only choose who you are now. I know, and I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be the person I should have been all along. Claire looked at Lily, who was building a tower out of garlic bread. Your mom would be proud of you, sweetheart. The way you spoke in Washington, the way you're being so brave. She'd be so proud. Lily considered this solemnly. I'm trying to be like her. Daddy says she always did the right thing, even when it was scary. That's true. She was the bravest person I ever met. Claire's eyes were wet. And I'm sorry. So sorry that I wasn't brave enough to help her when she needed it. You're helping people now, Lily said simply. That's what Mom would want, for people to help each other. Out of the mouths of babes, Caleb thought. His 8-year-old daughter had more wisdom than most adults, had found a way to forgive that he was still struggling toward. Maybe that was the gift of innocence, or maybe it was the gift of Lisa's teaching, still echoing through her child. After dinner, while Lily watched TV, Caleb and Claire sat on the porch with coffee. The sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of amber and rose. Veronica asked me to visit her, Claire said. At the detention center, she's not doing well. The reality of what she's facing, what she's lost. It's breaking her. Good. Is it? Really? Claire turned to face him. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve punishment. She does. But there's punishment and there's destruction. Right now, she's destroying herself with guilt and regret. Is that justice? Or is it just more tragedy? Caleb thought about it, about the difference between accountability and vengeance, between justice and cruelty. I don't know. Maybe I'm not the right person to ask. Every time I look at Lily, I think about the fact that Veronica could have prevented her trauma, could have stood up to Hale before it got to kidnapping and murder, but she chose her company over my family. How do I forgive that? Maybe you don't. Maybe forgiveness isn't required, but maybe visiting her, letting her apologize properly, giving her a chance to explain, maybe that gives you closure and her peace. I'll think about it. Claire left after finishing her coffee, headed back to Seattle and the work that was helping her atone. Caleb watched her taillights disappear down the mountain road and wondered if redemption was really possible. If people who'd enabled evil could ever fully wash the blood from their hands. He wanted to believe they could. Needed to believe it, actually, because the alternative was too dark. A world where mistakes were permanent and grace was impossible. That night, after Lily was asleep, Caleb pulled out Lisa's laptop again. He'd watched her video message dozens of times, memorizing every word, every expression. But tonight he clicked through to her other files, reading the emails she'd written to Veronica, the careful documentation of evidence, the notes to herself about next steps and safety precautions. In one file, dated 2 days before her death, he found a letter addressed to him. His hands shook as he opened it. "My darling Caleb," it began. "If you're reading this, then I didn't make it. I'm so sorry. Sorry for leaving you, for putting this investigation above our safety, for all the ways I failed as a wife and mother in pursuit of something I believed was right. I don't know if I made the right choice. I only know I couldn't make any other choice and still live with myself." Caleb had to stop, vision blurring with tears. He wiped his eyes and continued reading. "I know you're going to blame yourself. You're going to think you should have stopped me, should have protected me better, should have somehow prevented this. Please don't. This was my decision, my fight, and I chose it with full knowledge of the risks because some things matter more than safety. Justice matters, truth matters. The lives of the people Hale is destroying matter, and if my death helps stop him, then it's a price I'm willing to pay." The letter went on, page after page, of Lisa's thoughts and fears and hopes. She talked about Lily, about how to raise her without a mother. She talked about grief, about moving forward, about finding love again someday if the right person came along. "Don't make our home a shrine," she wrote. "Don't trap yourself in amber, preserving everything exactly as it was. Live, Caleb. Laugh. Let yourself be happy. I know you'll feel guilty about it, like happiness is a betrayal of my memory. But it's not. Joy isn't disloyal, and I need you to promise me that you'll give yourself permission to have a full life, to be more than just a widower raising a daughter, to be whole again." The letter ended with instructions about her evidence, about who to contact at the FBI, about the backup locations she'd chosen. And then, in a final paragraph, "I love you. I've loved you since that first terrible date when you spilled wine all over yourself and somehow made it charming. I've loved you through deployments and homecomings, through building our business and buying this house and creating Lily. I've loved you through every single day of our marriage, and I'll love you beyond death, beyond time, beyond everything. Take care of our girl. Tell her every day how much her mother loved her. And live, my darling. Please, please live." Caleb sat in the darkness, reading and rereading the letter, feeling Lisa's love reaching across 3 years to hold him. She'd known. She'd known she might die, and she'd prepared this message, this permission to move forward. It was the gift he didn't know he needed, absolution from the only person whose opinion mattered. The next morning, he made a decision. He called Agent Morrison and got Veronica's location, then arranged for a visitor's pass. Then he called Marcus, asked him to come stay with Lily for a few days. And finally, he called Claire. "I'm going to visit Veronica," he said, "and I'd like you to come with me, if you're willing." Claire's surprise was audible. "Are you sure?" "No, but Lisa asked me to live, to move forward, and I can't do that while I'm still carrying all this anger. Maybe talking to Veronica won't help. Maybe I'll leave even angrier, but I have to try." They drove to the Federal Detention Center in Denver 2 days later, Claire navigating while Caleb stared out the window, rehearsing conversations in his head. "What did you say to the woman who'd facilitated your wife's murder? How did you begin that conversation?" The detention center was exactly as depressing as expected. Gray concrete, razor wire, the institutional smell of disinfectant and despair. They were processed through security, searched, questioned, then finally escorted to a visiting room divided by thick plexiglass. Veronica was already waiting. She looked a decade older than when Caleb had pulled her from the ground. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, her expensive clothes replaced by prison orange. When she saw them, something crumbled in her expression. "You came," she said through the speakerphone, her voice barely audible. "I didn't think you would." Caleb picked up the phone on his side. "Neither did I." They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Veronica spoke again. "I've been trying to find the right words, the perfect apology. Something that would make you understand how sorry I am, how much I regret every choice I made. But there aren't words for this. There's nothing I can say that changes what I did, what I enabled. No, there isn't." I was weak. I was selfish. I prioritized my company over human lives, and your wife paid the price. Your daughter paid the price. You paid the price. Veronica's composure broke. I would give anything to go back, to listen when Lisa tried to warn me, to stand up to Hale before it was too late. But I can't. I can only sit here in this cell and live with what I've done. Why? Caleb asked. Why did you choose the money over doing the right thing? Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing everything I'd built. Afraid of being exposed as a fraud. Afraid of admitting that my success was built on blood money. Veronica wiped her eyes. I told myself it wasn't my fault. That I didn't know the full extent of what Hale was doing, but that was a lie. I knew enough. I knew enough to act, and I chose not to. And now? Now I testify. I cooperate. I help put away every person who profited from that empire. And when I'm released, if I live long enough to be released, I'll spend whatever years I have left trying to make amends. It won't be enough. It can never be enough. But it's all I have. Caleb looked at this broken woman, this former billionaire CEO now wearing prison scrubs and genuine remorse. Did he forgive her? No, not yet. Maybe not ever. But he understood her. Understood how fear could paralyze, how rationalization could blind, how good people could enable evil through simple inaction. Lisa left me a letter, he said, written before she died. She said she wanted me to live, to move forward, to not let anger and grief define me. She was wise. She was brave, the bravest person I've ever known. Caleb leaned forward. And you dishonored that bravery by protecting yourself instead of standing with her. That's what I can't forgive. Not the crimes themselves, those were Hale's doing, but the cowardice. The choice to look away when someone was fighting for what was right. Veronica nodded, accepting the judgment. You're right. And I'm sorry. Not because I want forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But because you deserve to hear it. Your wife was a hero. And I was too blind and too scared to see it until it was too late. They talked for another 30 minutes, Veronica answering Caleb's questions about those final days, filling in gaps in the timeline, helping him understand exactly what Lisa had been fighting against. It hurt, hearing the details. But it also helped, made Lisa's sacrifice feel more purposeful, more important. When their time was up, Caleb stood to leave. Veronica stopped him with one final question. How's Lily? Is she going to be okay? Caleb thought about his daughter, brave, resilient, healing slowly but surely. Yeah, she's going to be okay, because she has her mother's courage, and because I'm not going to let what happened define her. Good, that's good. Veronica's voice broke again. Tell her I'm sorry, that I wish I'd been brave like her mother, that I hope she grows up to be the kind of person who speaks up when it matters. I will. On the drive back, Claire asked, How do you feel? Caleb thought about it. Tired, sad, but also lighter somehow, like I finally let go of something I'd been carrying without realizing it. Do you forgive her? No, but I understand her, and maybe that's a start. They drove in silence for a while, watching the mountains roll past. Finally, Claire said, I'm proud of you for going. For facing her, that took courage. Lisa would have wanted me to. She believed people could change, could grow,